Talk with Sharifa. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Sharifa, and my music name is New Lily. If you're new to my channel, please check out my How I Became a Targeted Individual summary and or full story. And the links to both of those videos are located in the description box as well as in the comment section. This video, guys, is just going to be me talking about gaslighting, and that being one of the main tactics used on targeted individuals in this program. Gaslighting and reactive abuse, although not synonymous, are correlated, and those are the two main tactics they use on targeted individuals. So basically, if you've checked out my prior videos, you'll see me mentioning reactive abuse. And actually, I'm going to play a video for you guys that I have posted already. It's about 3 minutes long, just talking about what reactive abuse is. And then I'm going to talk about my experience with reactive abuse and gaslighting and how I've been, I guess you could say, what's the word I'm looking for? How I've been counteracting it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and play that video for you guys. Good morning, top of the morning to y'all. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sharifa. My music name is New Lily. If you're new to my channel, please scroll down and check out my How I Became a Targeted Individual summary and or full story, as well as my update video. Because in the update video, I basically just tell y'all about how my prior videos got deleted. I used to have way more videos posted, and most of them I was on camera. Now my newer videos, I'm for the most part off camera because I do not have access to that computer I used to use. And the only videos that I have on camera at the moment is my How I Became a Targeted Individual full story. So that's what's going on right now, guys. Please check that out if you're new to my channel. If you're not new, welcome back. I just wanted to share with you guys this video that showed up in my recommended. Remember I told y'all that they target me through the TV and the ads and stuff. And so they sent this, and I'm just like, are they poking fun at me? Because this is literally the gang stalking program right now. Whether they are or not, I'm so glad they put that video there. I'm about to share it with y'all. This is literally, remember I keep saying don't react, because literally that's how the program is designed. It's called Poking the Bear. I actually had a video, one of my videos that got deleted, of this military agent, I've said this in several videos, that basically was talking about how the program works and that it's designed to incite a reaction, a negative or adverse reaction out of the target. So now I have an actual term for what that's called. It's called reactive abuse. And so let me go ahead and share it with you guys.
Reactive abuse is where I do something to provoke the target. I find out what her weak spots are, what her vulnerabilities, her sensitivities are, and I deliberately push those buttons. I deliberately provoke her into some sort of explosive outburst, which any human being over time will respond with an explosive outburst given enough passive aggression, slights and little digs here and there and triggering of their vulnerability. Once she's had the outburst, I've got it. Then all I have to do is focus on her outrageous outburst. Maybe she will scream at me and become angry, and then I'll say, oh my God, you're such an angry person, maybe you need to go to therapy. Maybe she will start crying and have a breakdown and become very sad and upset, and I'll say, oh my God, you're so weak, what is wrong with you? And then I'll treat her with contempt and disgust, and I'll really focus on the ugliness and the inappropriateness and the hostility of her response. Reactive abuse is where I do something to provoke the target.
So guys, that's gaslighting. That's gaslighting, and that's what's done in this program, basically. This is why I keep saying don't react. Use me as an example. Because my reactions literally made my targeting go viral and made it as horrible as can be. Because I didn't know how the program worked. Sorry that I sound like this. I have food in my mouth, guys. It's morning time and I'm eating breakfast. But as you guys can see, this is something they put in my recommended. You see that? This is literally just my page. I was scrolling down. Whoops, oh boy, it's gonna reload now. Anyway, you can see that it's in my shorts. It's literally a recommended, it reloaded. I didn't mean for it to reload. But it's literally in my recommended videos. So yeah, this is what they do. They target me through the TV ads, whatever I watch, basically. But that was a good video. I'm actually glad they threw that in there. Anyways, talk to you in the next one. Peace out. Anyway, guys, so that wasn't a long video, but you heard what reactive abuse is, right? That's clearly the same thing as gaslighting, right? So them basically doing the things that they do, the covert harassment or the triggering of your vulnerabilities. Of course, they find out whatever it is that you're vulnerable about. That's why in my last video, where I was talking about shadow networking, not even the last one, the part one to the last video I posted. The last video I posted was part two. But part one, when I was talking about shadow networking, and I shared the clip from Lornetta's video where she said, be careful what you say, because it's like a computer simulation, this program, because everything is technology at this point. You know, they even have insect drones, bird drones. This is how they surveil you 24/7. So it's literally technological. Like they have AI in your body, RFID chips in your body connected to your brain, where it's doing this weird computer interface, brain to computer interface. Everything's technology, literally. So you have to be careful what you say because it's literally a computer simulation. And once you're targeted, it's a big smear campaign that goes on. So they're taking anything they can and trying to warp and twist it. So if you give them ammo or information, they're going to take it and they're going to warp it. So you think you're being vulnerable and telling your story, but in the meantime, you're actually giving them bullets to shoot you, like literally. So you have to be very careful with the things that you say in this program, right? Because they take your vulnerabilities and they use it against you, and they also create false narratives. And this is where the shadow networking comes in, where they literally will send you videos using their shadow networking AI software. They'll send you videos to your freaking YouTube and you're recommended. That's just an example. Whatever social media app you're on, let's say it's Hulu, they'll send movies with stimuli in it using their shadow networking, right? But I'm going off on a tangent. I wanted to talk about reactive abuse and gaslighting and also programming, all of the things that happen to targets when you're in this when you're put in this program. So anyways, with the gaslighting, right? You just heard the reactive abuse video. Let me go over to a picture of what gaslighting is, because it's exactly what that man just talked about, reactive abuse, them taking your vulnerabilities and poking at you, or forget about vulnerabilities, just abusing you, whatever it is that they're doing to abuse you. You know how this program works if you're a target. The covert harassment that happens with the noise campaigns, the stalking, the hacking of all of your social media apps, just constant unfair, unjust treatment, that type of abuse. And then when you react negatively, focusing on your reaction and gaslighting you about it, making it seem like you're the problem when you're literally being harassed, covertly harassed, and you're just reacting to the harassment. That's gaslighting. So let me show y'all a picture. Or for example, if you have a poor performance on a job because of what was happening with the covert harassment and then being told that you were a poor worker when you have a prior history of being a good worker, that's gaslighting. So let me show you all a picture of of gaslighting. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. This is actually a text, some stuff I want to talk about in this video, but that's not what I wanted to pull up. So the signs of gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of manipulation and abuse concentrated on making someone doubt reality. That is the existence of a targeted individual. Everything is gaslighting. They're doing covert harassment and then they'll pretend like you're crazy or actually call you schizophrenic. I had a video posted about that I deleted when I was on that tip of trying to not post videos, and I was trying to like behave or whatever you want to call it, trying to tame myself from talking about what's happening to me. And then kind of just realizing that I wasn't getting a job anyway. So I decided to make a video. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys. The video cut off. It didn't actually cut off. What happened is I had somebody knock on my door. So I decided to just end the video and start a new clip. So I just was talking about where I stopped off, reactive abuse, right? So just basically reacting to the abuse that you're receiving. That's what I was talking about, and how this program utilizes that tactic on target. So basically, doing all these heinous things to you, covert harassment, whatever it is that's going on in your targeting. And then of course, you have a human reaction, as the guy said in that reactive abuse video that I shared, and your human reaction is focused on, and they hone in on the ugliness of your reaction and then try to paint you as a villain when you're just reacting to the abuse. For instance, let's say somebody every day, let's say a neighbor every day, is purposely parking beyond their yard and parking in your parking spot. And every day when you come in from work, you're not getting to park in your parking spot. And then you talk to them about it, you ask them to stop doing it, they say okay, and then they continue to do it. And then you have a reaction about it. You blow up on them. Let's say you come home one day and you're really tired and you had a long day and you explode on them. And this is not even a good example because it's much worse what happens in the program, but this is just a random example, analogy, right? And then you explode on them and then they focus on your reaction like you're a monster for exploding when you've asked them several times to stop parking in your parking spot. This is what's done in the program. That's not even a good example, but I'm just saying, like, abuse, it's like covert harassment, covert abuse. You're being stalked on the road. In my case, oh my God, my stalking was terrible when I tried to relocate off island because of a reaction that I had on the Greyhound bus. Not going to talk about that again in this video, but that was reactive abuse as well. Check out my full story if you haven't already, and you can hear about that situation because that's one of the main things they've used, one of the reactions, right, that they honed in on to paint this narrative of me being this monster bitch, right? I've never mistreated homeless people in my life. And actually, when I was still in school recently, before I graduated in 2020. I told y'all my story. If you listen to my story, I went back to school at age 26 and I graduated 2 years later at 28. So I had a late graduation. I took a hiatus from school after I got my associate's degree. So check out my full story and you'll hear the story of how that happened. But literally, when I went back to school for the second time, I was working 3 jobs. So I was doing pretty well. I was working as a post office courier. I was a substitute teacher, was doing security at night, and I had a full load of classes. And then also I was getting a refund check, my financial aid check. So I wasn't balling, but I had money. I had a car that was paid for in full. I was doing okay. And so sometimes I would take my money and I would give food. I'm sorry, I heard a noise outside. I would buy plates of food for the homeless people in the vicinity. I could put my hand on the Bible about that. I have no reason to lie. I've just never been the kind of person to post what I'm doing for people. Like how some people, and I'm not judging them. If that's what you do, that's what you do. That's fine. But I'm not that kind of person. I never have been. I'm not the kind of person that's going to buy a homeless person a plate of food and take a picture of it for social media. I'm not even the type of person that puts my relationships on social media. I've been in several relationships and it's never touched social media. And yes, I'm using that word. I'm about to tell y'all why in a minute. But that's the kind of person I am. I'm very private. I'm not a talk my mouth off type of person. They're trying to paint it like I'm this big mouth kind of person that's just out here speaking reckless. I'm speaking like this because of the injustice that I'm experiencing. I've never been the kind of person to run my mouth. As a matter of fact, I said this in one of my prior videos recently. My grandma that was from Trinidad, she used to call me a secret order. That's just Trini slang or terminology. That's something they use for people that are very private. She said, this one's a secret order, This is what she used to say about me. Because out of all my siblings, I'm the most quiet. I'm the most to myself. Even with my sisters and myself, the relationship we had when things were cool before my targeting, they're always telling me their business. And this was the big joke between the 3 of us. They're always running off the mouth telling me their business. Not like I'm digging in their ass trying to get their business. I don't mind listening. We're sisters and I'll listen and give advice. But they're just openly like telling me their business. And I've always been more private. Not in a malicious way. That's just how I'm built. That's my personality. It's not no malicious nothing because I'm hearing noise campaign in the background. I'm just a private person. I've always been that way. I can't explain why I'm like that. That's just how I am. I'm quiet. I'm humble natured and I don't expose my business like that. That's just not how I am. But what's happening with my targeting, where they're literally stalking me, watching me in the privacy of my own home because of this false narrative or because they feel like I bared false witness, whatever the case is, whatever they're spinning the narrative for why they're doing this to me. This is why I'm fighting and now I'm speaking and I'm making videos and they're gaslighting me about it. Why do you think I'm making videos? The moment they turn off these cameras and leave me alone, I will shut the fuck up. Excuse my language. I will stop making these videos. I will go back to the old Sharifa and you won't hear another video out of my ass again. I want to be left alone. That's why I'm making these videos. I'm talking about the abuse that I'm experiencing. And even the reactions that I had in Florida where I said the offensive shit that I shared in my car, I do not stand by those things. I don't believe in those things and I've never shared those things in the past. But I shared those things out of anger and reaction. It's reactive abuse. I dealt with a lot of racially charged things in Indiana. And I talked about this in several of my videos, why I think that happened. It was a mix of what happened on the Greyhound bus with the homeless man, It was a mix of the conversations that was happening in my car when the people in my close circle kept calling me, telling me about how Indiana was a racist state and a sundown state and saying things like that, offensive stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, I kept trying to shush them up because my car was bugged. And there were literally people zooming by when we were having these conversations in my car. And so I understand that my targeting in Indiana got very racially charged. I believe that's why that officer pulled me over and was screaming at me off rip. And so I got scared for my life and I said that I was going to record him when he took my license and went back to his car. And I know this sounds kind of like I'm just touching on, I don't mean to keep using that word, guys. I'm going to tell you why I keep using that word. It's now stuck in my head. But there's a reason why I keep just briefly mentioning, there's a reason why I'm briefly mentioning it and not really giving y'all details. Because I talked about this in my full story and then I've talked about it in several other videos. But with the officer, he came out his car screaming at me. And I think it's because he had this perception of me, because what he saw in the Greyhound bus, in addition to the weird conversations that was happening with the people in my close circle, in my car where they kept trying to warn me about Indiana being a sundown state and racist this and you don't want to be hanging from a tree and comments like that I wasn't making, right? That they're making to me and my car is bugged. Why would you do that? This is why I kept saying it felt like a setup, like all the way through and through. And then they're gaslighting me like I'm crazy for saying that. So anyways, my targeting got really busted. Like it started getting really racially charged. And so the cop pulled me over and was screaming. He was on 10 as soon as he came out his car, which is understandable. He had this warped perception of me, right? So I was scared for my life. And when he took my license and went to his car, I sat there and this was a reaction to the abuse, right? I said out loud because I knew my car was bugged. I knew it had the mosquito insect drones that the military uses to surveil targets. I talked about this in my prior videos, guys. I even put a link to some articles and videos, I believe, in my last video, if you check out the description box, about these insect drones that they use to surveil targets. I didn't know about the drones at that time. I just knew somehow my car was bugged and they were seeing and hearing everything that was going on in my vehicle. So I didn't know how they were doing it. I just knew they were watching me and they were hearing everything that I was saying. So I just remember that, I'm sorry I heard noise campaign just then. I remember purposely saying to the people in my close circle when the officer took my ID and went back to his car, I remember saying out loud, because I knew my car was bugged, that I was going to start recording him because I'm scared for my life. And he started screaming at me off rip. And so he came back to my car and his whole demeanor changed. It was like Jericho and Hyde. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I always get it mixed up. Hyde and Jericho, or I think it's Jericho and Hyde. I'm not sure. Excuse me if I'm saying it incorrectly, but y'all know what I mean, right? It was like a totally different personality that came up to my window. And so I'm just like, whoa, I was respectful to him. I've never had a problem. That's the other narrative, false narrative they try to paint. Like I have a problem with law enforcement or government officials. I don't. I've never had an issue with the government. I've never been in trouble in my life. I'm a good girl. Like I've never gotten in trouble. I've actually gone out of my way to stay out of trouble. So that's why it's so crazy to me that I'm in this predicament. And the only reason I'm bucking back and acting like this rebellious type of person is because of the injustice that I'm experiencing right now. That's why that's happening. So I do have respect for law enforcement and I do have a respect for the military and I do have respect for government officials. Of course I do. I've always been a goody two-shoe type of person. I'm just bucking back because I know what's going on to me and I know that unfortunately, when you're in this program, typically the drones and things that are being used on you belong to the military. Typically, you're also being followed by law enforcement. That's what happens. And if you haven't committed a crime, of course, you're going to buck back. I'm human. What the hell do you expect? You think I'm going to sit here like, oh, like, I don't understand what's expected of me when this is happening. What am I supposed to do? Sit here and not make videos and just let them do whatever to me? I don't understand what they expect from me. So anyways, so with the law enforcement officer, when he came back to my window and I said this thing that I was going to record him, I said I was going to start recording him. He came back to my window and his personality had changed completely. He was just like really nice to me. He was speaking to me very, very kindly, get to where you're going safely, okay? Just being really nice to me all of a sudden. But then after that, that was when my targeting went more viral. So it was like 3 things that caused my targeting to explode, you could say, and go viral, right? The first thing was the thing on the bus with the Greyhound man. I feel like I keep repeating the same shit in all of my videos, but it's like, I just feel like I have to keep repeating it, because it's almost like I'm saying it and I know it makes sense, but it's still like it's not being heard. It's weird and crazy. It's like it's some sort of weird hoodoo voodoo something on me. It really feels that way. But anyway, so after the thing with the homeless man, that went viral. That was what started the viralness of my targeting, right? You got to listen to my full story, guys. I'm just kind of briefly mentioning things or referencing things that I've already talked about. The second thing happened with the police officer that was when the police cars started getting involved in my targeting. That was when I started seeing police cars everywhere following me. It wasn't just civilians anymore. They started flying helicopters overhead. They started driving by me with ambulances, with fire trucks. You know, like this big, major, like crazy ruckus for little old me. I'm like, I've never committed a crime in my life. What are you doing? The worst that I've ever done was smoked weed. I know weed is not legal. Like, I'm like, what is going on? Right? All of this that they're doing to me. And I'm just like, really? For little old me? So then the third thing happened, the worst thing, right, in my targeting. So after that thing with the police officer, not only was law enforcement and all the major corporations involved, but then they also started to really make my targeting get even more racial. Like they kept having white and black, people walking in front of my car holding hands or, and this was before I had ever said anything racial, just so you know. This was strictly after the people in my close circle kept calling me and warning me about Indiana being a sundown state. They started the racial stuff in Indiana, right? I hadn't said anything racial yet, right? So they're walking in front of my car and it's like a white and black person walking holding hands, or you'll see a white lady helping a homeless black man, or vice versa. You'll see a black person helping a white homeless person, so they made it racial, but they were also still focusing on what was going on with the homeless man, right? Although I've never mistreated homeless people in my life, and I was literally having a stupid reaction because of what I saw in the station, realizing that this thing had followed me. You got to listen to my full story, guys, to know what I'm talking about. But they ran with that like I'm somebody that runs around mistreating homeless people. I've never been that person. I've never been that kind of person. I have literally given out of my pocket to homeless people from my financial aid check. I've never been the kind of person to mistreat homeless people. That's not even how I was raised. That's crazy. Who does that? So anyways, they ran with that. And then they started doing the racial thing too because of the conversations that was happening in my car in Indiana. It started getting racially charged. And a lot of the times they would set up these fake arrests with white officers outside of the inns I was staying in or outside of the hotels I was staying in, purposely like have a bunch of officers there, and they would make sure it was white officers. They would always make sure it was a white officer arresting a black civilian. They even did this big skit. I talked about it in, I believe, my full story. I'm not sure if it was in the full story I told that got deleted or the one that I have posted right now. But basically, like, this black girl, this white officer was arresting her, and she's screaming at the top of her voice, "I do it for Mike Brown. I do it for Eric Garner," just yelling out all, the black civilians that were killed by police officers or whatever. And she's just screaming and acting like, like she's being like, I don't know, like one of those Black Lives Matter moments, excuse me. And she's staring at me, and the officer's staring at me too while he's arresting her. And he's like, okay. And he's patting her back. I'm like, what the hell is this? And they're both staring at me. And so I'm just like, do you think I'm dumb? Either you're just doing this just to tease me at this point, or you think I'm dumb. You're insulting my intelligence. Because if you thought I was going to pull my phone out and record this debauchery, I don't know what you thought was going on. I know this is stupidness. I don't know what they thought it was. I knew what they were doing. I didn't even know what street theater was at the time. I didn't even know I was a target. I didn't even know this was a thing. To me, it was just like this weird, creepy thing that started on Island that kind of resembled that situation that I had dealt with in the past with the cyber stalking, cyberbullying. To me, it was another play on that, but it just went way further. And I'm like, wait, all these people in the States getting involved too? How are they getting it? After a while, especially with my car being bugged and just the way that they were synchronizing and the way it was so well put together, I knew this was something deeper, and I knew I had to do research. I knew something more was going on. I'm like, this is not just them being spiteful at this point. This is some sort of weird thing they have that they're doing to me. So that was when I started waking up and kind of realizing that this is a little bit deeper than what I actually thought, right? So anyways, that was where my resentment, and I don't have resentment towards white people. I mean, I know that's not believable. I don't care who believes me. I have no reason to lie. I've been sitting here telling the truth in all of my videos and putting my foot in my mouth left and right because I'm such an honest person. I do not have resentment towards white people, but I will admit, after staying in Indiana and dealing with the covert and overt stalking and harassment for about a month, and then them setting up the fake arrests and all the other weird stuff they were doing, I did start to feel a resentment towards white people in that moment. I don't feel that way now, but I was feeling that in that moment. I was feeling heated. And so I took my ass down to Florida, still continuing to deal with the freaking stimuli, the racial stimuli, and it was connected to police officers at this point because they were tying the race thing into the police officer thing and, just complete harassment. And I felt angry. And when I got down to Florida, my targeting got even worse. I sat there in my car and I shared some extremely offensive Hebrew Israelite propaganda. That is the truth. That's what happened. I've said it in all of my videos. I don't know what they want me to do to change it. I've apologized. They don't stand by what I said. It was coming from an angry place. I don't know what more they want from me. I was reacting to what was happening to me. I don't know what more do they want. I do want a foot. What do they need from me to stop doing what they're doing? Because I have already apologized. I don't know what more I can do to satisfy what they need from me. Because like I said, it was a reaction to the abuse I was receiving. Anyway, so I shared a bunch of Hebrew Israelite propaganda. A lot of it I don't even believe. And I sat there and I shared it. And that was what made my targeting go like buku bonkers viral. So it started with the homeless man, then the police officer situation, and then the icing on the cake, the car in Florida, the stuff I shared in my car in Florida. That was really what really took my targeting to the height. After that, oh my God, everywhere I went, it went from me seeing just police officers and fire trucks and ambulances to military personnel standing with their legs spread apart like they're about to arrest somebody as I'm doing my DoorDash. I'm pulling up at the restaurants and they're standing outside with the bulletproof vest on and their legs spread apart. I'm like, what the hell? Am I Osama bin Laden? Like, what is going on? It was the weirdest thing I had ever experienced in my life. I was like, what is it? For somebody who has never been in trouble, you got to imagine to get to just from 0 to 100 real quick, to be somebody that's never been in trouble to now you at the top of the list of the highest of trouble. That's weird. You have to understand it's very creepy and it's very traumatizing. Anyway, I'm not trying to sit here tell the story again. I'm actually trying to tell y'all about the programming that happens in this thing with the reactive abuse, the programming, and the gaslighting. So this is what I was talking about with the reactive abuse and the gaslighting. These things that I reacted to that caused my targeting to go viral, these are reactions to gaslighting, to me being stalked and being harassed. It was reactions. And then I got gaslit about my reaction. I'm painted like a monster. It's just the weirdest thing ever. So it's reactive abuse. It's gaslighting with this program. And then also the other thing that I wanted to talk about was the programming that starts to happen. Because whatever narrative it is that they're running with or they're trying to perpetuate, they start to program you because of the shadow networking AI technology that they have. In addition to everything else, you being stalked by gang stalkers, directed convo, you know what that means? Like you're going around to, public places and everyone around you is stalking you. At least if your targeting is as viral as mine, or even if it's not everyone in the vicinity like me, if you're a target, you do have people stalking you. And they might come by you and have conversation. It's called directed convo in the community, right? So they'll have conversation with stimuli in it when you go to public places. So it's just 24/7 assault. And they're using the stimuli to sensitize you, which means you start to recognize the stimuli. You start to recognize that this is something that they use as a part of your targeting, and you start to feel emotions towards that stimuli. So they start to sensitize you via their shadow networking software, meaning they're hacking all of your technological devices and sending videos with that stimuli to those technological devices. For instance, YouTube. My recommended is lit, right? They're always sending me stuff full of stimuli to my YouTube, sending me stuff about predators. I haven't done that in a while, but that was what they were doing when I was in Florida. They actually haven't done that in a while. But thieves, sibling rivalries, what else is it that they honed in on, that they tried to create a narrative about? So many things. Just weird, creepy stuff, man. It's getting worse and weirder and weirder and gnarlier and gnarlier. Satanic stuff, stuff about people being a part of weird, they're trying to paint a narrative based off of whatever it is that they can. So this is why I said you have to be careful with the things that you say, because they take what you say like ammo and they create narratives. So literally when I was in Florida before I came home, which kind of solidified what they were planning to do to me anyways, because I pissed off some high-powered people. You have to understand, in my car, the stuff that I shared, not only was it extremely offensive, but it came from some very powerful people. Let's be real here. Anybody knows this, and if you don't know it, you can look it up. Jewish people run America. They own all of the major corporations, CNN, NBC, all of the major corporations are owned by the Jewish people. And I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way. I'm just spitting facts. This is not a subjective opinion. This is fact. I came for Jewish people. And then also, too, I made I don't want to talk about it. I've said some really heinous Hebrew Israelite propaganda about Caucasian people. So hello. And then I also then came for powerful people, too, because I said the rich. I kept talking about the rich. What was I saying? Stupidness in my car. I was saying, I can't even remember. I'm not going to try to repeat some of the stuff I said. But I was just saying, like, the elite. I was talking about the elite, the higher up government. I wasn't talking about, like, the government in general. But I was like, the elite government are, sharing Hebrews, like, propaganda, just kind of coming for, like, the higher up of the government. Like, I guess you could say, like, the Rothschilds, the people like that. Just sharing some weird propaganda about that. Some controversial, conspiratorial Hebrew Israelite propaganda that I would have never shared. Things about the holidays. I don't give a shit about the holidays. I just recently I shared you can check out my video, actually. I have it, let me show y'all real quick. Because I can corroborate everything I've said. In my full story, I was talking about the fact that I have a post on Facebook where I created a Thanksgiving meal, right? I was talking about that in my when I say that in my summary or my full story. I think I said it in both of them. My summary and my full story of how I became targeted. I was talking about the fact that my Facebook has a post from 2021 where I actually prepared a Thanksgiving meal. This was when I was still teaching. This was when I still had my apartment. I actually prepared a Thanksgiving meal despite being Hebrew. I don't have a problem with the holidays. We grew up celebrating it even though we are Hebrew. I remember that we used to have Thanksgiving meal. We used to have Christmas. My mom used to buy us Christmas gifts. All of those things. We celebrated all of those holidays. So it's not ever been something that I was anti or against, but I just purposely started sharing like the most offensive shit I could find out of anger. Because I felt like the people that were throwing stones at me were being hypocrites. That's how I felt in the moment. I'm just keeping it real. I said that in my full story and I'm saying it now. That is how I felt. And so for me, what I had been taught, even though we did celebrate the holidays, I was taught that the pagan holidays, just from our belief system, I understand the world is full of different beliefs and different books and different understandings. I don't care. It's not to say my religion is better than yours. I don't feel that way. I'm just telling you, just like you have a right to respect and follow your religion, I have a right to as well. And in my household, I was raised up and taught not to celebrate the pagan holidays. So even though we celebrated it and we didn't mind, there was still that understanding in my household that these are pagan holidays not to be celebrated. But who gives a shit? You can do what you want to do in life. There are different religions and beliefs out there. It was never anything I held on to. Example, like I said in this video that I'm about to show y'all, from 2021. You can see it says documentation of my life prior to my targeting going viral. And in that video, I had finally gotten into my Facebook that had gotten deleted. By the way, I had to hop through hoops, y'all, to get my Facebook back because I knew I had evidence on my Facebook that I needed. I know I'm not talking about the cyber stalking, cyberbullying situation, although that was a part of it. It was mainly this thing, trying to get this Thanksgiving meal. It was all of that. I wanted to get the evidence for some of the things that I talked about in my stories to corroborate what I'm saying. Because it's like you get painted as a liar when you're in this program. They constantly throw the liar stimuli at me, and it's just not true. I'm not a liar. Maybe a lot of things, but one thing I'm not is a liar. Never been. And actually, that's why I keep getting in trouble, because I'm too honest and I keep putting my foot in my mouth. Anyway, so this is why I was trying adamantly to get back into my Facebook. I was like, I need to get back in. I got so much evidence on this thing for these videos. I need to get back in. I need the evidence to corroborate the things I'm saying. So eventually I got back in, and that video with the oxtail thumbnail that I just showed you, I show you the post that I mentioned in my summary and full story. So in 2021, when I was still teaching and had my apartment, although I'm Hebrew, I celebrated Halloween. I even wrote this post about, although I don't celebrate, not Halloween, excuse me, Thanksgiving. I said, although I don't celebrate Thanksgiving, all of the delicious meals look really good, and I wanted to be in Ting, so I cooked a meal just so I could, whatever strippiness I said, right? Some type of fluffy, corny post that I wrote, basically saying I don't celebrate it, but I'm still making a meal just because I like the meals that I was seeing on Facebook. It was something like that, my post said, right? So I everything I said can be corroborated. I never had an issue with the holidays. I've never had an issues with people of different races. As a matter of fact, and I keep saying this, just recently, and when I say recently, it's been about 3 years since I've been targeted. So this was about 4 years ago. I remember in 2019 when I was still in school, shortly before graduating. I graduated in 2020. I wanted to date Asian guys. So I remembered like going to my sisters and stuff and talking to them about the fact that I was trying to date an Asian guy. And I remember them telling me, well, if you want to do something different, why don't you date an African? This is what they were telling me. Why don't you date an African? This is what they were telling me when I was telling them I wanted to date an Asian guy. So this is why I felt like, this kind of way where it's like I got thrown under the bus and they're just running with this narrative that I'm, like, I can't believe they're doing that. It's just crazy to me. It's insane to me. Right? Running with this narrative like I'm prejudiced or whatever the case is. It's bonkers to me. If the whole thing felt, I'm just being real. I'm not trying to say disrespectful stuff. The whole thing felt like a setup. I keep saying that. So anyways, I'm not going to go into the details of it any further. And the reason they said that comment, by the way, it's not that we're anti-racist in this household, but part of the Hebrew Israelite understanding, some sectors of it, not every sector. I've said this in several videos. There are different denominations of Hebrew. So different Hebrews believe different things. There are Hebrews that believe everyone is going to be saved. There are Hebrews that believe you can date anybody you want to. in our household, although we did have the understanding that everyone had grace and everyone could be saved, in this household, there was the understanding that because of something that's written in the Bible, you shouldn't date anyone that's not Hebrew. And it's more of I would say a religion thing in a way than it is a race thing. Not totally. I'm not going to sit here and lie. But it's kind of like being a Quaker in a way. You know how with Quakers or even Muslim, where you have to date somebody that's converted to Muslim. It's similar to that with the Hebrew understanding. It's like that kind of understanding where this is why they're telling me date an African, because there are Hebrews in Nigeria. So they were saying if you want to do something different, why don't you date an African? And I'm just like, what? Like, I want to date, like, I want to experience I've always been like that, just kind of different, not different like that, but just like, I do like people of different races. I always have. I do find people of different races attractive. And so for me, I was just like, I was asking them, do you think there are any Hebrew um, Asian guys? This is what I was asking them. And they're like, well, if you want to do something different, why don't you date a Nigerian? This is what they're telling me. Why don't you date it? There are Hebrew Nigerians. This is what they were telling me, right? And so this is kind of like the conversations that used to happen, So if anything, out of all of us, I was the one that was more so open to other things. So it's just like I didn't understand how they really let me get thrown under the bus like that when they knew the whole thing was like almost like a setup in the first place. The reason things got racial in Indiana in the first place was because of the things you were saying to me on the phone, when you were calling me. Like all of that to me, it just felt like a major setup. That's what the thing felt like. I'm just keeping it real and honest. I'm just being real. This is what the whole thing felt like. So anyways, it's just, this is what it turned into. It turned into this thing where I shared a bunch of, extremely offensive content that I don't stand by, that I never shared in the past. I don't have a history of sharing that type of content. This is what it turned into. It turned into a moment where I was sharing offensive Hebrew Israelite propaganda and kind of just like put my foot up my ass, like I made my targeting go way more viral than it already had. So the thing with the homeless man happened, that made it go viral. Then the thing with the police officer happened, that made it go more viral. I started seeing helicopters, etc., etc. Then down to Florida, I'm reacting to now all the abuse I had experienced for the last 2 months, especially all of that racially charged shit in Indiana. Then I shared the offensive Hebrew Israelite propaganda in my car, and boom, viral for real. Like, I don't even know how viral this thing is, but I know it's really viral. But the thing is, they have this thing so swept under the rug, I can't even find the shit. I don't know how they're doing it. They have this thing so well freaking swept under the rug that I cannot figure this shit out, but I know it's viral. It's crazy how I know it's viral. It's like everyone in the vicinity of wherever I go is involved. And I was in several states before I came home. I was in Louisiana. I was in Indiana. I was in Florida. And what other state? I think I was in Kentucky. Tennessee. I went through a few states, and everybody was involved. I was driving a rental. This was when I still had money. So I went up there with $4,000. Well, that's the other thing I want to talk about, y'all. This is the thing. When I go through the things I go through, because remember, it's 24/7 nonstop harassment and it's unfair, unjust treatment, because I was reacting to what was happening to me unjustly. They freaking painted like this big, huge, nasty narrative, and they're like literally tormenting me for my reaction to the abuse that was happening to me. It's crazy. So whenever I sit here and I make these videos, although I don't mean for it to be long, it's oftentimes many things for me to address. There are oftentimes many things that I need to address. And that's what's going on in this video. This is why I haven't been making the videos recently, guys. I know y'all see, after I told my story and I've provided evidence in several of these videos, pretty much defending myself and also refuting the false narratives that they tried to paint, I took a break from making videos. I've been working out. I've been trying to be positive and just focus on positive things. But then, when I leave the house, crazy shit happens. And again, I want to make a video. I'm like, oh my God, like I want to make a video again now. And so that's kind of what's happening, today and yesterday, really. It wasn't even yesterday. I think it was day before yesterday. I had a conversation with someone in my close circle that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And then today what happened, and then also yesterday what happened when I was on the road too. It's several things that I wanted to address, talking about the gaslighting, the programming, and the reactive abuse that happens in this program. Whew, let me take a breath, guys. Let me see if I could pause this thing actually, because I was talking a lot and I almost want to pause it, guys, just because I'm sitting here right now with my feet in the anti-nano bucket. And for those of you that have been subscribed to me for a while, and when I say a while, I mean since the beginning of the year at least, you may have viewed some of those videos that got deleted. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, you can scroll down to my update video. I'll scroll there right now and show you what I'm talking about. Not the important update video. This video that says updating. You can see the little white hand cursor that's standing over the update sign in the thumbnail. In that video, I pretty much talk about why my prior videos got deleted. So for those of you that have been subscribed, you know what I'm talking about. But if you're new to my channel, just know that I had way more videos with me on camera. Now the only video where I'm on camera is my full story video. Every other video, I am not on camera. And the reason being is because my videos got deleted when the computer that I was using got confiscated. So foolishly, I stayed signed into a computer that wasn't mine, belonged to somebody in my close circle. And I made my videos, using that computer, and I stayed signed into my YouTube, never thinking that that person would go into my personal YouTube and delete my videos. That just would never cross my mind. It wasn't even a fair in my mind because I just thought that would not happen. I didn't think that would happen to me, right? I didn't think she would actually do that, And so I recall her taking her computer, confiscating it because of a video I had made, right, where I was basically talking about the same stimuli in programming, one of the stimuli that they like to use on me often. I'm sorry, I heard noise outside, guys. I was talking about basically one of the main things that they made stimuli for me, and I was going into detail about that situation. I talked about it very in depth, and what I went through in Florida and why certain things happened the way that it did. And, it made a lot of sense what I was saying, and I even had, I'm not even going to mention that. I don't even feel the need to talk about that. But as soon as I did that video was deleted immediately. The computer was confiscated. And then when I went onto my YouTube, I saw that all of my videos had gotten deleted. All of my videos, except the ones with music. Even my poetry breakdown videos. I purposely created that series because of the fake narrative that they keep trying to paint about my music. So I wanted it to be very clear that I know what I'm writing when I write my music. And I did a video anyway recently proving that. But I wanted to make sure that I was able to show that I knew what I was writing when I write my music, because they keep trying to paint this false narrative like I did something spiritually wicked to be on my musical beat, basically. I'm sorry I started hearing noise, but this is the narrative they're trying to paint. So they're tying in two different stimuli. They're tying in the stimuli that I did something spiritually wicked to family members, basically. I'm not even going to say what they keep insinuating. I even heard someone in my close circle talking about it the other day when I left my room. But this narrative they're trying to insinuate, right? Tie it into something that I said in my video, being vulnerable. You know how they do, create false narratives, right? And trying to tie it into my music when it doesn't make not one lick of sense. So let me go over to my notes and break and bust this thing down, right? So first of all, when I did that symbol with my hand, let's talk about the music, right? I don't want to talk about it for too long, right? I've been writing poetry all my life. I'm a writer. I'm not somebody that speaks well. And it's not that I don't speak well, like to say that I'm illiterate. That's not what I mean, because that's also something they keep trying to perpetuate, and it's not true. Literally, they just come for your self-esteem. I realize I'm not the only target they do this to. But I speak well. That's one thing that I do, right? I do speak well. And I'm not somebody that's able to articulate or communicate with people well. I've always had like this social ineptness to me. So in other words, I can speak well when it comes to making these videos, or when I'm writing a paper and I'm expressing myself, or I'm writing my poetry and I'm expressing myself. I can speak well. But when it comes to communicating to people, publicly, I suck. I can be real about that. I have Asperger's. I also have ADD. So I'm very, very shy. And it's not even just a shy thing. It goes beyond the scope of just being shy. I'm socially inept. So it's like when it comes to socializing, there's a blockage there. So if it comes to doing a video like this is easy. But then when I'm sitting face to face with somebody in public, it took years for me to get good at speaking, right? Publicly and communicating with people. And then, of course, I'm being targeted now and people are staring me down and, doing all these noise campaigns and stuff. So I'm stammering all over my words. It kind of reminiscent of how I was when I was younger, before I had mastered my social ineptness and my social anxiety. Of course, that's going to happen to somebody that's socially anxious. You're staring at them with mosquito drones and all these people staring at you, making noises in the back. And of course, you're going to be socially inept. And you're already somebody that's shy and awkward, right? So they're trying to paint this narrative, basically saying that I'm not writing my music, when actually my social ineptness is why I'm such a good writer. It almost feels reminiscent. I don't want to say that word. I'm trying hard not to say hate. Like hater type of thing. I'm trying not to say that because I have a bad habit of doing that. And they like to say I'm a narcissist and I'm pig-headed and I'm this and I'm that, right? but it feels like hating. I can't help but say it feels like hating. The reason I'm saying that is because of the level of sabotage that has taken place. It's like not only was my real career blocked up because of this weird situation that blew up way bigger than it was supposed to ever blow up, but then when I got back to Island after being feeling like I was set up, I started getting into coding. That's what I was trying to do. I'm a go-getter. I always have been. I'm a very what's the word I'm looking for? Not assertive. I am assertive, believe it or not, even though I'm somewhat of a pushover. But I'm what's the word I'm looking for aside from go getter? There's a word I'm looking for. I'm just gonna use the word go getter. I'm a go getter, so I'm always trying to do things to be successful. I'm always trying to push myself forward and propel myself. Like I got to be in school. I got to get a degree. I have to work this job. It's the Capricorn in me, right? Not to bring that up, but I mean I'm not into astrology. Let me not do that. But the basic what a Capricorn to be. That's me. Responsible, assertive, always working, always trying to reach goals. Like that's me. That's always been me. So now you blocked up everything, right? I got set up when I tried to leave Island because of this weird thing blowing up. I come back, I'm still humble, right? I didn't even flip off or pop off on my parents. I'm not a disrespectful person because there are other people who would have gone through what I went through and would have came home and flashed off or whatever. I know different people that would have acted way different to how I acted. I came home humble after everything that happened to me that felt unfair. I came home humble, right? Stuff still continuing after I had this big talk with the people in my close circle. Stuff still continuing, the weird stuff still happening. It didn't stop, right? So anyways, I'm still ignoring it, right? I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just in my room trying to figure out what I can do to salvage my life after the weird storm that came out of nowhere happened, right? So I start getting into coding. I literally went online, did research, and I was looking for careers I could do out of the house. I'm like, okay, well, you have a degree, you have an English degree. Let's see what you can do out of the house. I'm sure there's something you can find, right? So I'm looking through stuff, I'm looking through careers, and I started first of all seeing call centers. I'm not to say that's not a career. Some people do make a career out of that, and it's decent pay. That's not what I was trying to do as a career, but it was something I was looking at that I could do temporarily to make money. So I was looking at that and I was looking at different things. And that was where I came across coding. And that was where I came across the tech career field. And I was like, wait a minute, I like computers. I've always liked computers. Actually, the ex that I talked about in my full story that I had the big melee with, he was a computer science major. And I thought that career field was interesting. And also my brother-in-law is a computer science major. I think he has his associate's degree in that. So that's something that I've been around and I've been exposed to, and I actually find it to be interesting. I like video games. I've always liked video games. And I like computers. I've always liked computers. So for me, I was like, this is something I could do. I could actually sit home and do this and be happy. So I was like, okay, this is something I could do at the house since this weird situation is happening. Still not settling down and being defeated and allowing this thing to consume me. I'm like, in the meantime, until I can think of how to get out of this situation and figure out why it's happening in the first place, let me find something I can do from the house so I can be productive and not just sit on my ass. This is the kind of person I am, right? So that was how I came across the coding, because I was literally web surfing, trying to find something I could do out the house and be successful, right? So I came across coding. I was like, wait a minute, that's a good idea. The tech field. I like tech. I like computers. I could do that, right? So then I started learning about coding and the different coding languages and how you have to teach yourself. And, I saw the back end coding, right? So you could be a back end developer, you could be a front end developer, or you can be different types of tech career fields, right? I was even looking at sales tech person, and that's not for me. The personality I have. But if you're somebody that's not really into coding and you don't want to sit there and have to learn the different coding languages, you could even become like a sales tech person where you're making that same money that the people in the tech career make, the tech field, but you're not having to deal with the little intricacies like learning how to code and things like that. For me, I was not trying to be a salesperson. I don't have that type of personality. As I just told you all, I'm socially inept, right? I've learned over the years to build myself up and learn how to speak publicly. I was teaching for years. I had to learn, right? But now I'm kind of regressing because I'm in this weird situation where all these people are judging me and chasing me and running me down. I'm right back into my shell. Like I'm back to being the old shy Sharifa before I broke out and learned how to be me, right? And not totally either. It's this weird thing that's happening because even though I'm kind of getting back into my shell now because of what's happening, I'm also turning into a different person. I'm finding myself the pushover that once was in me is gone. I'm reacting in ways, and I'm not saying reacting like I'm putting my hands on people, but reacting in ways where like I would never have ever reacted before. Like I'm like so bold now because of what I've been through. I am so freaking bold faced now. It's crazy how this program actually helped me to become more of a assertive person. Anyway, so back to what I was saying though. So I was trying to get into tech. This is what I was trying to do. I wasn't studying music. I wasn't thinking about my music. I already talked about this in my summary and my full story how the music thing happened. I've been writing poetry for years because I'm socially inept. That's how I express myself. And my mom knows full well too. And everyone in my family knows I've been writing poetry for years. Anyone that really knows me. Been writing it since high school, writing little raps in my book, writing little poems in my books, all these different books of poetry. This is how I found the Say You Love Me poem that I made the video about in my Asperger's video to disprove the nonsense that they're trying to perpetuate with this false narrative that they're trying to paint. The Say You Love Me poem was written in the beginning of 2018. I showed y'all the date on the email. That was written in the beginning of 2018, before I ever recorded, before my brother-in-law came randomly to my sister and I and asked us to go to the studio with him. And I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way. You know, I'm glad he came with that opportunity to us. I'm just trying to let you know it's not something I was seeking out. So if I was somebody that was doing something spiritually bad to be famous, don't you think my first recordings would have been my seeking out? Don't you think I would have, like, you would have heard that I went to the studio and all of a sudden I started hopping in these studios out of nowhere and all of a sudden my shit's popping off? That's not what happened. I literally write poetry, been writing it my whole life. And then my brother-in-law, who knows that I write poetry, he heard me rap before, and then also knew that my younger sister sings, came to us and said, yo, I'm going to the studio. There are some Hebrews coming from up north that are going to the studio. Y'all want to come? And so I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds cool. We were both excited. We were like, the studio? Like, we never been in the studio before. Sure. You know, it wasn't nothing I was thinking about doing. I never thought about going to the studio. I'm so shy and awkward. You think I was thinking about going to any damn studio? I was working 3 jobs and I was also taking a full load of classes. This is what I was doing when I was in school. When I went back for the second time, you have to understand I had just come from being a blackout drunk and also being a rape victim. So I came with an agenda. I wanted to do well in school and I wanted to succeed. I was down. I was down bad. And that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't trying to do music. I didn't give a shit about music. I like poetry. It's an escape for me. I wasn't trying to do no music. That was a fluke that happened there. And then even after I discovered that I sounded good on record, right, when I got recorded, it still wasn't something I was pursuing. I had all these different freaking people reaching out to me in Miami. You know, this guy named Cool People, he had 100,000K followers on his Instagram. You know, big names reaching out to me trying to get me into the studio, and I kept brushing them off because I was more so focused on my classes and I was more so focused on going to work. So if I was somebody that was trying to pop, excuse me, I'm getting excited, guys. Hold on. That's you? Yes? Come. I can't, Daddy. I have vinegar on my feet. I'm going back to sit in my bucket. Listen to me. You need to stop what you're doing. I know you're taking over the house with this bullshit and I keep listening to it all night. I don't want to be hearing that in my house all night. It's not like you're talking to somebody, you're just rattling out straight. I don't need to keep hearing that whole night. Stop. So guys, I just ran to the bathroom. You know, it's ridiculous because although I'm a big 31-year-old woman, I'm like reverted back to being a teenager. Basically, it's like I'm living with my parents, you know, like you have to follow the rules like you're a child. Like this is where it's at right now for me because of my targeting. I'm used to living alone, moving freely, doing the things I want to do, right? But that's part of, you know, being vulnerable to this program. You know, I'm unemployed. You know, this is back to, you know, square one, living with your parents. You know, it's a horrible feeling at age 31, about to be a big 32-year-old woman and feeling like a child. You know, it's a horrible feeling, especially somebody like me who's worked so hard throughout the years. It's so like frustrating. But anyways, so I'm going to talk quieter. I actually got up to spit, guys, because I started getting hyped when I was talking about the music thing, because that's one of the main things they like to use to perpetuate false narratives, right? When it comes to my targeting. And it doesn't even make sense. I've disproved it numerous times and they still try to push it. So I get really excited when I start talking about it. And it was to the point where I had to get up and go wash my mouth out, because not even wash my mouth out, but like spit, because I was like, you know, I don't want to say frothing at the mouth. That's an overdue. But I was really getting excited with what I was talking about just now. Anyway, so I'm going to try to quiet down though, because I'm sure y'all heard, I don't know if y'all heard that or not, but when I went out there to the bathroom, I had someone in my close circle telling me about rattling off at the mouth all night and they don't want to hear it. And the house is kind of small, you know, it's like a small proximity. So it's just like, I'm going to, you know, talk quieter. This is why I've quieted down, but I'm very close to the mic. So hopefully you all can still hear me. So anyways, with the music thing, That was a fluke. I keep saying that in all of my videos and I'm saying it again. That was a fluke. You know, that poem that I found, like I said, the Say You Love Me poem that I clearly broke down the lyrics for with the double entendre and the homophones and things of that nature that I was using, the figurative language that resembles the same type of poetry I'm writing right now. That was written in the beginning of 2018 before I had ever recorded. And I actually forgot about it. I emailed that poem to myself and found it by fluke recently. That was the most high, right? Because I was looking for evidence about the cyber stalking, cyberbullying situation that I dealt with, because I got gaslit about that too, right? So, anyways, that's how I found that poem, and then I recently actually recorded it on my BandLab. But this is the type of thing I had. I had poems and books. I still have one set of poems that I can't find up to this day. I don't know where it is, and old books all over the place. I've been writing poetry my whole life. But the recording thing literally just started, and it was by fluke, again, in 2019, about 4 years ago, right? When my brother-in-law came with this opportunity to my sister and I, right? And I didn't even continue with it. I could see if after that moment, even if they still wanted to paint something, even though the opportunity came by fluke, right? It's not even to say like after that I was hopping in studios and, you know, on the radio station and doing all these big things. I actually didn't give a shit about it, right? I had big people reaching out to me that I didn't answer, right? I threw it to the side and I focused on school. And the only reason I started doing music again, a whole 3 years and change later, 4 years, excuse me, and change later, is because of my targeting. So let me get back to what I was saying, right? So after getting back home, after things went viral, right? I came back home and I was in the room trying to find something productive to do and trying to salvage my life. And that was how I came across coding, right? And so I said, I'm gonna teach myself how to code. You know, I looked at back-end coding. I saw that back-end coding resembled math. You know, I saw there was a lot of algorithms and, you know, different things that you had to learn that was very reminiscent of math. And I'm not good at math, never have been. I talked about this in several of my videos, right? And it's not that I can't be good at math. I don't really need to give an explanation, but it's just focusing. You know, for me, math it wasn't fun for me. And I think it's because I have more of a creative mind. I think that might be what it is. Because I noticed that people, one of the rare things about, and I want to say this without sounding like a narcissist, but I've said this in my prior videos, I'm an INTJ personality type. So that's an extremely rare personality type. So basically, females with this personality type, I think, make up like 0.2% of the population or something like that. I'm not trying to say I'm super special or anything like that, but I am different. Obviously, look at my targeting. Something's going on, right? I'm not trying to be a narcissist, but I'm literally just saying I'm an INTJ personality type. And one of the rare things that they said about that personality type is that although you're analytical, you're also creative, because those two things are apparently contradictory. So typically, not always. Obviously, there are people out there, this is a big world. I know there are people that are creative that are also analytical, but typically people that are creative are more so not analytical. You know, they're not analytical. And then people that are analytical are typically not creative. But I'm both. I'm analytical and I'm creative. So that's why it's kind of odd that I'm not good at math, because I am an analytical person. That's the odd part about it. And then I even remember recently when I was in school for the second time, you know, still talking about that time in like 2019, my sister was an accountant major, but before she was an accountant major, she was a oh my gosh, I'm forgetting that. No, she was a finance major, right? But before she was a finance major, she was an accountant major. And so I remembered her showing me some of her questions and showing me some of her courses. And I was actually answering the questions correctly and helping her with some of it a little bit. And she's like, wait, you might be good at accounting. And I said, yeah. I said, this is actually kind of fun. And she said, I think it's because it involves a lot of reading and you like reading. And I remembered her actually being more so into the finance because I was more of the math aspect of it. But I realized with accounting, it's a lot of analyzing and it's, you know, those type of things that I enjoy. And so I realized even though I'm not good at math, I am an analytical person. It's strange. So I've never been good at math, but it's not because I can't be good at it. It's literally because I found it boring. I can't really explain it. It's just boring to me. I never wanted to sit there and learn the concepts. But when it came to something like accounting, I actually found that to be interesting because it was more so reading and solving problems. And I thought that was fun in a different way, solving problems in a different way. Math is more so like a puzzle to me, which you would think would be fun, but I don't know. I don't like it. Never did. So anyways, I went off on a tangent with what I was saying. I forgot what I was saying, how I went off on a tangent. I was talking about the math, creative. I was talking about my poetry, but I don't know how I got to math. I'm so confused on how that happened. I'm sure I'm going to listen back and realize what happened, why it went off. What was I saying? I was talking about being an INTJ personality type, right? But what led me to there, though? My brain went blank. What led me to the INTJ personality type? Because I was talking about my poetry. I forgot, guys. You know, this happens to me sometimes. And again, the joke is that, or the gag is, I never know if it's neuromonitoring because they do have the technology to blank out your brain, or if it's my ADD. I really can't tell. That's the horrible thing about being a target. But I just had a moment there. So I guess I'll listen back and figure out how I went off on a tangent. But regardless with the poetry thing, I've been writing it for years. So this is what I've done. You know, like this is how I express myself. I'm not a social person. You know, it took me years to build up the courage to actually socialize with people. And I learned how to do it and do it well. It's called masking, right? I learned how to do it. But it's just kind of like it all broke apart once the targeting started. It's like you regress when that happens. But that's how I express myself for real, for real. It's through my poetry and through writing. That's all I'm trying to say. I went off on a tangent. And so for me, that's what I've always done. I've always been a writer. But with the music thing and the recording thing, that was a fluke. I wasn't looking for the opportunity. I wasn't knocking on doors trying to get in the studio. I wasn't trying to be the next Meg Thee Stallion. I wasn't none of that shit. I don't care about that, right? And actually, I'm too shy to be an artist anyways. Even if I wasn't targeted and tomorrow Drake were to hit me up, or one of those big name people tell me, hey, yo, come, you're the best thing, the next Bexton walking. I would not take the opportunity because I'm too awkward. I can't even imagine myself being in a studio working with big artists on that level because I was intimidated in Miami with the little people, not even say little because the guy had like 100K followers, but someone like him intimidated me. I didn't want to go to the studio with him. I had somebody on this island that was reaching out to me, that was telling me about my music and telling me it sounds good and he could clean it up for me and, you know, telling me that he was a good producer. And I actually saw that he was working with some local artists. He was somebody I could have worked with too. But again, just feeling awkward, you know, just knowing that the kind of personality I have doesn't line up with that of a musician, somebody that's going into the studio and rapping with and working in close proximity with people. That's just not me, you know? So I knew that, you know, that wasn't a goal of mine. I didn't care about that shit, right? And I feel like I need to reiterate that because it's crazy what they tried to paint with this new narrative when I started doing my music again. And they know full well why I started doing my music again, because I was doing the coding and I started getting backlash for doing the coding, right? So anyways, that's the tangent I went off on. Ding, ding. Okay, got it back, guys. Okay, that's what happened, right? I'm probably going to make this video again. We'll see. But that's why I started talking about the math. Because with the coding, I was seeing that there are different types of tech developers and different type of coding languages that you can learn, right? And I saw with the back end coding, that has more of a mathematical edge to it. So you have to learn algorithms, etc., and it is more reminiscent of math. It's not exactly math, but it's similar. It's a similar coding. It's similar coding languages that you deal with when you do back-end coding. And I saw with the front-end coding, it was more so easier to learn. You know, it was something that I saw that I could teach myself. Not totally easy. JavaScript is not easy. You know, even JavaScript has somewhat of a, you could say it almost seems to have some sort of mathematical element to it in a way. JavaScript is not easy, but I felt like I could handle that. So this is why I started teaching myself front-end coding. Started learning JavaScript. I started learning HTML, CSS. HTML and CSS is easy. You can teach yourself that, you know, if you really sit down and dedicate your time, right, to that, you can teach yourself that. So I taught myself that and I was creating projects. And then I started teaching myself JavaScript and started creating JavaScript projects as well. And then I also did like this program called 30 Days of JavaScript, where I was following projects from this guy that created the program. And I was literally emulating some of his projects and creating my own spin on it. So like he did like a whack-a-mole and I created a whack-a-crab. And I'm not trying to sit here and brag about that stuff, but I'm just trying to explain to you I was trying to be productive. I wasn't studying music. I was still, again, trying to have a career. This is what I was trying to do. And they kept doing noise campaigns. They kept taking the current, you know, kept all this kind of stuff that just continued to happen. I didn't understand why all of this was happening to me from sending a text. I couldn't understand why. You know, even after the conversation I had with the people in my close circle when I came home, and I talked about the fact that I was sorry for being false witness. I even had the person in my close circle say, don't lie on people or they're going to hate you, is what he was telling me, and basically like giving me advice about why it's happening. I said, okay, right, ready to listen. And then this was before I ever made videos, by the way, guys. Then it continued to happen. So I'm like, why is it continuing? I'm not doing anything. Why is this continuing? And so this is why I started having these angry reactions, right? But I still hadn't started making the videos yet, just so you know. Instead, I was coding and trying to teach myself how to code and trying to be productive, and also applying to like call center jobs and at-home type of jobs. All of it was sabotage. Like they kept sabotaging the jobs. You know, it just kept being a bunch of fake, phony interviews. You know, I guess the gang stalkers would reach out to these people and I guess send them whatever false narrative, you know, whatever recordings they had for me in the States with the reactive abuse, stupid reactions that I had. All of it was sabotage. All of those interviews that I was trying to get, they knew I was up all day long. As soon as I woke up in the morning to nightfall, I was on that computer creating freaking coding projects, teaching myself coding languages and applying to jobs all day long. So for me to get gaslit now that I actually stopped doing that, when they know that that's what I was doing and it was all getting sabotaged, is crazy to me, right? So anyways, I was doing the coding thing, teaching myself front end coding because I didn't want to mess with the back end coding. I realized that, like I said, it seemed more mathematical. And so I was more so focused on the front end coding. So, anyways, this was around the time when I did the symbol with my hand. So, this is how I'm going to disprove the symbol with the hand, right? So, around this time, they started taking the current every minute. They kept sending, they kept taking the current, they kept doing noise campaigns. And it wasn't like just taking the current for an hour, taking it for 2 hours. They're taking it for like sometimes 3, 4, 5 hours, right? And there was even this one day where they took it all day long, all the way into evening time. This is the type of stuff they were doing. So, obviously, I couldn't do the coding. And not only could I not do the coding, but then I couldn't even be on the internet because my phone was cut. I don't have a job. I'm unemployed at the moment. So my phone was cut. So I'm sitting there. You can imagine sitting in a room, knowing everyone around you in the vicinity of your neighborhood is staring at you on mosquito drones, and you don't have anything to do. So you're sitting in this little hot small room while you're being stared at by all these people and they're doing noise campaigns. And then when you react adversely, they're gonna paint you like a monster. This is a crazy program. It's a weird, crazy program. I'm telling you. So, anyways, this is what they were doing. And then it got so bad that they started sending me death threats. They literally were sending death threats to my pool game. That's how serious the thing got. I felt like I was the one that was betrayed. They're sending death threats to my pool game. That's crazy to me. It was bonkers to me, right? So they started sending stimuli. And I'm also going to talk about another stimuli that they tried to turn into something too. This nasty thing that they sent me that they turned into stimuli as well to paint whatever narrative and push the agenda they're trying to push, right? Just because they don't like me as a person, right? So anyways, so they sent me basically death threats to my pool game. And when I say death threats, I don't mean like literally sending things saying, hey, we're going to kill you. Not like that. But like they'll play against me on my pool game. Remember, everything's hacked with their shadow networking software, right? So they hacked my pool game and they would play against me with avatars eluding to death. So basically, it would be profile pictures of, things like black death bows or, the dove, the rest in peace dove, or, things like that. Crazy, weird, wicked stuff. Here somebody just drove by. Understand the level of wicked that this program got to. You need to understand how gnarly it got and why I fight the way that I do. Because for you to not have committed a crime and have this level of wickedness happening where people are wishing death on you and you don't even know them, understand that this is a different level of wickedness happening here, and this is why I fight the way that I do. And so anyways, this is what was going on. Literally sending like a bunch of death threat shit to my pool game, like literally alluding to death. Or they'll play against me, like let's say with the black death bow, and then click on one of the automated messages that would say the clock is ticking. Like when you're playing against a player and you have the automated messages that you can click on. One of the automated messages was the clock is ticking. Check out my last video, the part 2 pertinent information for targeted individuals, where I showed you how they target me with the shadow networking software. The video they sent to my YouTube recommended. Check out that video with the stimuli. And I talked about the clock is ticking and how they try to use your time is running out stimuli to sensitize me into fear monger. They use that, right? It's fear mongering. So it's trying to make you feel fearful and on edge. Everything. They try to make you feel on edge about everything. It's like eggshells with this program. So not only is there the false, smear campaign going on, but then they also want you to feel fearful for your life. It's a psychological warfare. It's actually called soft warfare. So check out my part 1 pertinent information for targeted individuals video. That was where I actually shared the clip from Michael Barden, where he's talking about this technology that they use. There are actual government software programs and systems that they use in the targeted individual program. So they use the shadow networking software to hack all of your technological devices and sensitize you. So this is why you'll feel like you're seeing subliminal messaging in your TV shows, or, you go on Hulu to watch a movie and the movies that they're throwing at you, all of them have stimuli. And you're like, what the hell is going on? And you start feeling like you're going crazy. It's called soft warfare. And what they're using is their shadow networking software to sensitize you and also to program you. Because obviously, if you're constantly being presented with stimuli that you're being sensitized to, and then you even have people in person presenting the stimuli, you have them using their shadow networking software to hack the radio stations. And it's not even hack the radio stations. They literally, I believe what they do is contact the radio stations. Obviously, you're being watched on camera. via the mosquito drones. So they have the system well put together, however they do it. I don't know the particulars, but it's not complicated with the type of technology they have. But it's all a part of the shadow networking program that they use in warfare, but they're using it on innocent civilians. Anyway, so they use the radio station also to sensitize you and provide stimuli, the same stimuli that they're sending to you in videos. So if you're being presented with the same stimuli 24/7 while they're staring at you, don't you think you're going to start having a reaction to that stimuli? Don't you think that you're going to start like MK Ultra programming, because that's what this thing does, right? Don't you think they're programming you and you're going to start to have a reaction to the things that they're throwing at you, or the false accusation that they keep perpetuating and constantly literally brainwashing you with? It's called MK Ultra. So you're constantly seeing this stimuli in every show that you're watching. Then you hear a noise campaign in the background. Then you go in your vehicle and you're hearing it on the radio. You're going to get programmed and you're going to start reacting to whatever stimuli it is that they're trying to sensitize you to. That's how the program works, right? So it's called programming. It's soft warfare, psychological warfare. And so your best bet with this program is to document what's happening. So it's not just to express what's going on with you, right? So that you can have your own sanity and mental state of mind, right? And know that you're not going crazy. But it's also good so that you can help other targets, so that they can understand that this is an actual government program. They have software that they're using to do this, and you're not crazy. And no, it's not weird if you start having a reaction to the stimuli that they try to sensitize you to, because they're programming you. It's called soft warfare. So then when you start having a reaction to the stimuli that they've programmed you with, then they're going to do noise campaign and reactive abuse, right? And focus on your reaction to the stimuli that they've programmed you to. This is how this program works. It's a very efficient government program, right? So anyways, this is what they started doing with certain things, right? So I'm going off on a tangent. I'm going to get to that in a minute, right? Because I have a lot to talk about in this video and I'm trying not to make it too long. There's a lot to talk about and a lot to cover. But anyway, so with the coding thing, right? I was still trying to be positive despite what was happening, like I said, with the noise campaigns and with the way that they were continuing with what was happening, even though I apologized and I was sitting there humbly just trying to salvage my life after literally feeling set up, right? They start taking the car in every minute and noise campaigns and, so I'm not even able to do what I'm doing on the computer. So I started running off at the mouth back then. I don't do that anymore. I kind of do in my head. But since my thoughts are being broadcasted with this technology that they have, the RFID chip that was put in me against my will, right? Against my consent, without my consent. It's almost like rape at this point, what they're doing, putting this technology in you without your consent. It's so inhumane. But anyway, so the technology was put in me against my consent, so my thoughts are being broadcasted. So at this point now, even though I'm not out loud saying negative things when I get angry with what I'm dealing with, human reaction, reactive abuse, like what I was doing back then, I do have negative thoughts sometimes. Sometimes I'd be cussing in my head, I'd be going sick in my head, because it's so freaking frustrating and aggravating and disturbing what's going on, right? So I'm having a human reaction. But even that, they try to paint me like a bad person for, but not as much. Not now that I started making these videos and actually literally articulating what's going on and also exposing the different tactics used in the program. That is how you survive it, and that's how you fight it, and that's how you counteract it. Because if you react the way that they want you to react, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, but if you react the way that they want you to react and you don't literally articulate and stand up for yourself and advocate for yourself and expose the tactics being used, then they can actually do what they're trying to do successfully, which is paint the false narrative, make you feel crazy, and then God knows whatever else follows, right? So this is why it's so important that you document, you articulate what's going on, you expose the tactics being used, and then provide documentation and evidence to protect yourself. So not only are these videos for my protection, because they keep gaslighting me about them, but they're for my protection. But then I'm also doing it to help other targets because I know what this feels like. And I know how it was when I first got targeted and I just started learning about this program and I couldn't find some of the videos I needed to find. I did find slowly but surely, because of the kind of person I am, the way that I research and become kind of like obsessed with a topic whenever I get on it, much less for something like this where my whole life is being freaking impeded. I hyper focused and I did my research. But there were certain things I just could not find information about. Things that I found out from digging and digging and digging. And that's why I'm making the videos that I make, because I'm making videos that I would have liked to have found, when I first found out that I was a target. That's what these videos are about. Anyway, so as well as, like I said, protecting myself, I make them for my protection also, these videos. So anyways, the next thing that started happening, like I said, back to the story, they kept sending death threats to my pool game. So like I said, avatars alluding to death. Like I said, the black death bow, and then they'll click on the message, right? The instant messaging, the clock is ticking. They went as far as to play against me with the last name of the guy from my cyber stalking situation, whose family lived in the neighborhood that I just moved from. They played against me with his last name, right? And then had him, or whoever was playing, click the clock is ticking. These are the things they were doing. Even me bringing up his son, because they keep sending stimuli like that too, about people attacking on people's children. They keep sending me videos like that. Like I literally sat there, again, reactive abuse, and randomly brought this man's son up. That's not what happened. They played against me twice with his son's name, back to back in the span of an hour, on my pool game with their shadow networking technology. And I had enough, because there was a lot of noise campaigns going on in that neighborhood too. Understand, before I ever made my videos, there was a lot of noise campaign and gang stalking happening in that neighborhood. I even went downstairs, I keep saying this over and over again, when they were in that phase of taking the current, and I saw somebody in my close circle in the bush talking to his dad and laughing about the current being taken, and I could tell it was street theater. So how could they gaslight me about talking about the situation and make it like I'm a bad person for just talking about what happened and talking about the fact that this is like major betrayal, to have no disrespect to him or his family. They never did anything to me aside from the gang stalking, but they never did anything to me other than that. But to have his family a part of my gang stalking, like, you don't think that's kind of strange after everything I dealt with him? Like, you don't think that's kind of weird? And when I say dealt with him, not trying to, I don't want any more problems with that situation. It's just one of those things where it's just because it's me type of thing. I got a lot of backlash. But just what I dealt with the gang stalking, not gang stalking, cyber stalking and cyberbullying, after the things that I said to him, the fallout from that situation. And I've already acknowledged my wrong too. They like to make it like I don't acknowledge my wrong. I acknowledge my wrong in that. That's never been my argument. My argument was how far this situation went. That was what my argument was. Just like this situation, same thing again. It's not that I wasn't wrong for bearing false witness. It's overdue. The punishment is not matching the crime. This is all I'm saying. This is my only argument, and this is what my argument has been. Anyway, so I'm going off on a tangent. So that's the type of stuff they're sending to my pool game. Just weird stuff like that, death threats and all this type of stuff. And the clock is ticking. These are the things they were sending. And I was popping off at the mouth, never thinking that my life was in jeopardy, never thinking that they were going to put nano in my body, never thinking that they were going to spin the narrative and make it like I was doing something spiritually wicked because I said I thought my roommate did something on me. And there's a reason why I brought that up too. Again, I understand that situation. I can understand how that looks bad. I get it, because it's like I don't have absolute evidence that this girl did whatever. I do have some evidence, but I don't have concrete evidence to say that this girl did something to me. So for me to sit here in these videos knowing that, I guess you could say that I'm being watched by all these people, it's illegal. They shouldn't be watching me anyways. It's not like I went on a public forum and said these things. I've been actually suspecting this since my early 20s, and I never told anyone outside of my close circle. I'm a private person. I never posted posts about it, never created videos about it. It wasn't until after all this weird stuff happened when I tried to relocate off island, and it was just weird, crazy situation. I was like, nah. I was like, this has to be witchcraft. And I kept thinking about her because I kept remembering after moving out from her what happened. Remembering before we moved out, my sister getting really skinny and sick, remembering us leaving town and coming back and finding her dirty underwear that wasn't there before on top of my sister's toilet in her room, and just remembering what she was dealing with within that friendship when we were friends, and also just the understanding that apparently for years she didn't like me and I didn't know. My friend told me, my older friend, the one that was my sister's age, told us that. I talked about this in my full story, all of this stuff. They're making noise campaign because they don't like me as a person, but they don't realize back then she was the one doing passive aggressive things. My sister even said it was weird. I didn't even know why she didn't like me. I didn't understand. I was a very quiet to myself type of person. I was never this outspoken, loud, pig-headed type of person that this program is kind of turning me into. They're calling me a narcissist, but I'm really just trying to show that you can't break me. And so if that's coming across as narcissistic, then sorry, not sorry. I'm just trying to advocate for myself and show that you cannot break me with your tactics. So anyways, it's just this thing because I said a bunch of offensive shit and I pissed off a bunch of people, even though it was reactive abuse. That's really what it is. So I could be dead right in the situation and it doesn't even matter. It's just because it's me and I pissed off a bunch of people. That's just how it works with this program. It's a major injustice. Anyway, so I forgot what I was saying though. So that's what they were doing with the coding thing. Just sending me a bunch of death threats and, taking the current every minute and just continuing with the harassment that I didn't deserve. And so I remember getting really angry one night. And mind you, a month prior, they had sent me a dream. And I say they because the dream was so strange. First of all, I've never had a dream like that in my life. And thank God, thank the Most High, I told my mom about it. Had no reason to tell her about it because at this time I didn't know my brain was chipped. And I had no idea that they did thought manipulation. I didn't learn that until after the fact, and I started connecting the dots. I was like, thank you, Most High, for showing me. Because I had no idea that they had the technology to do dream manipulation and thought manipulation and pushing thoughts in the brain and V2K and all this. I didn't know. I was a newbie to all of this stuff just a few months ago. I just kept avidly doing research and learning more and more. I try not to learn too much either because that's also putting me in kind of a like jeopardy. And it's just kind of like the more that I learn, the more they try to set me up. It's this weird thing they're doing. But I don't know what they expect of me when I'm dealing with this thing. Like, obviously, now that I know about it and I'm dealing with it, obviously I'm going to do research. Again, it's like reactive abuse, like focusing on, oh, why she keep digging? Why do you think? Wait, why don't you leave me alone and then I'll stop? Right. But anyway, so I started, so a few months ago, I didn't even know about the chipping, right? I didn't know that I was microchipped. I didn't even know they were listening to my thoughts. They've been listening to my thoughts for God knows how long. This is why I know they know full well that this is bullshit. The weird stuff that started pushing in my head after June, because that wasn't happening before June. And I know they've been in my head for a good while now. I done put two and two together because I know when I got the initial sting was since last December, right? Last year, December, 2022. So I know they've been in my brain for a while and they know full well they didn't find nothing. And as a matter of fact, I know that they heard the thoughts that I was genuine and innocent. And I think what happened is because they weren't finding what they wanted to find, because when you hate somebody so bad, and I've never felt that way about anyone, so I can't even say, like I've ever felt that way, but I can tell what they're doing, that the hate is so bad that they're willing to try to do whatever it is it's almost like frame me, like trying to create whatever narrative to fit the narrative they want. Like that kind of situation where it's like you hate somebody and you want them to be guilty. I don't know that feeling, but I'm just saying it's that type of situation where they hate me so bad that they want me to be guilty so bad. So that's kind of the worst situation you could ever be in. And that's where I'm at right now. So anyways, I know they didn't find nothing in my brain. I know they didn't. But then all of a sudden in June, they're letting me know that they're in my brain. And then all of a sudden the thoughts start pushing in my head. So that's when I realized, okay, they're doing another tactic. Now they realized they couldn't find anything. They didn't find what they thought they would. And so now let's do this. That's horrible. That's terrible. So it's just major psychological warfare because once you know that people are listening to your thoughts, and not only that, sometimes pushing shit into your head, you start, and then also too, hold on, the programming, right? So they're sending you constant stimuli to sensitize you about these false allegations that they're trying to perpetuate. You start to have this psychological tick where certain things start pushing in your head and you try to push it out because you're so terrified that something weird is going to push in your head. I can't really explain what happens to you when they do what they do. It's a very effective program. So they let you know that they're in your head, right? They let you know. Then they constantly send you stimuli to perpetuate whatever false narrative they're trying to perpetuate, program you. They're programming you so that after a while, when you see the stimuli that they're sensitizing you to, a name might pop in your head. This is what starts happening to me. I'm going to explain it to you. This is what happens. Literally because I know what they're insinuating. I'm not stupid. I know what they're insinuating with their false narratives and the stimuli that they try to perpetuate. Instantly now, I know what they're insinuating. That name wants to pop in my head when I see the stimuli that they're programming me to. So they're fighting the name, trying to push it out my head. It's this weird psychological torture that they're doing. And it's a very effective program and they can frame the hell out of an individual if they wanted to. That's all I'm going to say. And Michael Barden talks about it too. Whatever narrative they want to paint of you, they got the technology to do it. I'm telling you, it's very scary. So anyways, I'm going to get to that in a minute though. So they just kept sending what they were sending to my pool game, right? Alluding to death, right? Just sending that type of stuff to my pool game. And I got so angry. Again, not thinking that my life was in jeopardy and just thinking they were being mean and just tormenting me nonstop. And it just felt like, how much more can you really do? So I remember getting so mad that I was popping off at the mouth, not like now where I actually keep my mouth quiet. I'm more so, like I said, pop off in my head. But my thoughts are being broadcasted. So when those moments happen, it's being heard. Oh, well. I try not to have those moments too much, though. I really do try not to have those moments too much. And I remember just getting really angry and throwing my hand up. First of all, I said, these people are so wicked. How much more can they do? I would never wish death on them because I couldn't believe they were taking it so far as to wish death on me after everything else that happened. And then I threw my hand up in the mark of the beast symbol. Do you know, to this day I can't explain why I did that? I don't know why I did. I can't explain. It's almost similar to when they're pushing weird thoughts in my head at night. Like last night, for instance, let me give you an example of a random thing they push in my head. And it's every time I'm falling asleep or when I'm just waking up. They randomly pushed in my head, not him, not his brother. That's nasty. That popped into my head and immediately I sat up. It's the weirdest thing with this thing. You know, it's not like you think the thought and then you catch on like, oh, I thought that thought. That's not what happens. It's the weirdest thing that happens. What happens is instead, it's like you hear the thought, you're falling asleep, right? But you're still up. You hear the thought and you're like, what the hell? You know, this is what I'm trying to explain to you. It's literally like an intrusive thought pushing in your head that you're not thinking about. Or you'll be doing a random activity and this random thought will push in your head that you didn't think. But it's mainly when I'm falling asleep or waking up. And I even have a comment from another target that apparently experiences the same thing. So I don't know if it's something with the way that the brain is wired, that when you're falling asleep, they're able to do the technology better. I'm not really sure. I can only assume that that's what it is, right? They do it during the daytime too, but it's mainly when I'm waking up in the morning or falling asleep at night. That's when I notice it happens the most, right? I'm going to show y'all this comment from this other target. I made sure to save it, right? It was under this video where this guy was telling his story about being targeted. And this comment from Steven, he said, I get very little V2K. They have done it to me when falling asleep and waking up. You have my sympathy because I wouldn't like that 24/7. Right? So with that guy, the 24/7, apparently in the video, he was literally talking about, I'm scared to talk about it because I noticed like with this program, it's like a computer simulation. And when I mention certain things, they start to do it. So I'm really not going to mention that. I'm not going to go into too much details of what he was dealing with. But just know the V2K thing and the thought manipulation thing can get really... You see, I start stammering. It makes me nervous to think about it. It can get really bad. And from what I've experienced in this program, when I talk about shit, it becomes a reality. So I'm trying to be very careful with my words. But I do experience it at night and when I'm waking up. Like I'm pushing stuff in my head. And so it's just like, it's this weird thing where the thought will pop in. I know I didn't think it, so I immediately sit up and I'm like, you're not framing me. As soon as the thought pops in, I sit up like, what was that? I make sure to sit up and make a big deal about it every time it happens. Because I'm like, I am not getting framed. No, baby. I know how this program works and I know the technology you have. And I know you don't like me. I'm like, no way are you framing me. So when those things pop in my head, I sit up immediately. I'm like, I don't play that. I sit up immediately and I make a big deal about it when a thought pops in that wasn't mine. It's the weirdest thing ever. But then also, too, the psychological thing starts to happen, like I said, where sometimes they're not pushing anything into your brain. And because they've sensitized and programmed you to certain stimuli, as soon as the stimuli is presented, a name might pop into your head because you know that this is what they're trying to sensitize you to. And you start to try to your damnedest to push it out. It's the weirdest thing. I can't explain what happens. It's weird and creepy and effective if used properly. But they're using the problem is they're using the technology on innocent civilians. That's what the problem is. So anyways, I forgot what I was going to say. So this was what was happening back then. They just kept threatening me and, sending subliminal messages about death to my pool game, taking the current, trying to stop me from, progressing in the tech. And I'm like, oh my God, like, why are y'all really trying to block up my life like this? Because I sent a text message? Are you serious? Like, this is how I felt. And I hear the car driving by. It's crazy. This program is insane. It wasn't a car. I apologize. That was the thunder. And I actually think they're doing harp on me right now. That's another tactic that they use, by the way. I talked about this target, in many of my other videos. Truth Hurts Hypocrisy America. He was showing examples of how they were using the harp on him. There was a day he was supposed to be getting a new car and they were using the harp to make the weather ridiculous. So it's just like this thing where they block up your life when you're a target. And it's so unfair and unjust because you can be as innocent as the sky is blue, but because they have the power to do it, they will block up your life and really, like, literally jack you up, like block your shit up. They will do that. Right? So of course you're going to be frustrated now, want to freak out about it. This is how it works. Can you imagine not doing anything wrong, doing something as simple as sending a text message to people you trust, and then they blow the thing up out of proportion, right? Blow the shit up out of proportion, right? And then all of a sudden you're this big, huge target and all these people are chasing you down. And then furthermore, you try to leave, to relocate, you're set up and sabotaged even in that situation. And then even conversations are had in a way where you get framed. Like, it's this weird thing that happened, right? So anyways, let me continue though. So this is what was happening where they were sending the death threats to my pool game, constantly sending it, right? Sending death threats to my pool game, among other things, taking the current, kind of just blocking everything up. All the interviews that I thought I was getting, call center interviews, blocked up, fake stuff, just sabotage, 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 impeding of life, sabotage, right? And so it's just like after a while I gave up. And I not give up, but that's just I don't even know what that word means, to be honest. That's just not in my build or my DNA. I didn't give up. That just doesn't happen for me. But I did kind of take a break from trying to get a job online. It wasn't like that, I don't know, that drive and that goal that I had where I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna get a job online, try to save up, I'm gonna try to get to Africa. This is what I was thinking because, as much as I didn't mean the things that I said in my car, I do understand that I pissed off a lot of people that are diverse that live in America. And so in my mind, I'm like, right now, the way that it's working, when I tell my story, people are being subjective. There's no objectiveness to it. All they do is hear the offensive shit that I shared, and that's it. It's not even making sense of my reaction to the abuse I was receiving. Nothing like that. So I figured I'm just being real. This is to tell you I'm an honest person. Oftentimes my honesty gets me in problems, but I'm never going to change being honest. I'm never going to change being an honest person because I know the Most High will bless me for it. But in my mind, I'm like, well, Africa, although it is diverse now, the whole world is diverse at this point. But I know that there's less people that I would have offended over there. I'm just keeping it real with you. I feel like there's less people that I would have offended over there. If you're looking at the population and the demographics, there are less people that I would have said offensive things about over there, especially in certain countries that I was looking at. So I figured, well, they'll hear my story and listen to it objectively rather than subjectively and putting their own personal opinions or inner feelings because I said offensive shit, right? So this is what my mindset was. I was like, maybe I can go over to Africa because there are going to be less people that I offended over there and they'll genuinely listen to my story and hear that it makes sense rather than just getting pissed off about the shit I said and not even looking at the fact that it was a reaction to what was happening to me. So that's what I was looking at. I was looking at Africa for that reason. And then not only that, I'm not going to lie, I also always wanted to go to Africa. It's beautiful over there. There are different continents I was looking at, not just Africa. I was looking at Brazil, not recently since being targeted, before I was a target, when I had the opportunity to go anywhere in the world and be comfortable. I was looking at Sweden. It's beautiful out there. I was looking at Brazil and I was looking at Africa. Those were the three main places I was looking at before becoming targeted. After my targeting, straight up Africa. That's what I was focused on and trying to get over there and find somebody that could really listen to my story objectively, despite the offensive shit I shared in reaction to what was happening to me. So that's why I was looking at Africa. And that was my mindset back then. This is how I was problem solving with what was happening. I was like, okay, all this crazy shit happened. This was before I ever made videos, by the way, guys. This was before I sat there and made my videos. As a matter of fact, I think I had made my part 1 and part 2 video of how I became targeted. I think I had only made those videos and nothing else. But that's what I was sitting there thinking. I'm like, okay, well, what can I do to salvage my life and fix the problem? So I'm like, okay, I kind of like burned bridges over here. I kind of messed up with the offensive shit I shared, even though it was a reaction to what was happening to me. That's what I did, coming to terms with what happened, right? So I'm like, how can you fix this, Sharifa? So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can go over to Africa. There will be less people that I offended over there. Maybe they'll listen to my story objectively, and then I can start over there. So I was thinking to myself, well, okay, let me just try and get some employment here on island. I know this gang stalking thing is island wide now. It's really bad. What can I do outside of the house to make money? And so that's how I got into the coding and I started looking into that, just looking into online careers and stuff. And that's how I found the tech, right? So anyways, they kept sending the death threats, taking the current, just basically impeding everything, like what they've been doing. And I got angry and I kept running off at them out because I never thought in my life would be in jeopardy over a text message. I just didn't think that was going to happen to me. So I was running off them out, just cussing like I had a right to, because I felt like what was being done to me was injustice and overdue. And I remember just cussing off at them out. And I said, one night, after they sent a death threat to my pool game, I said, man, these people are so wicked. I said, they did so much to me and now they're wishing death on me. I would never wish death on them. And I threw my hand up in the mark of the beast symbol. Cannot explain why I did it. But like I said, about a month prior, because I went off on a major tangent, I had gotten a weird dream a month prior. Did not know about the mosquito drones. Yeah, I had just started learning about the mosquito drones, but definitely didn't know I was microchipped. Had no idea that they were listening to my thoughts. No idea that they had the technology to push dream manipulation. I had no idea, right? So I had that dream and I remember just, around that time being very creeped out about everything that was happening. It was a weird dream where I was floating over this man and he was naked laying in the bed. And I'm sorry if this is a TMI. I've talked about it in prior videos. All I can do is keep it real and tell y'all what happened. Floating over this naked man, and he starts doing that symbol with his hand, the mark of the beast symbol. He did that with his hand, and then him and I started having intercourse in the dream. I know that sounds weird and creepy. I'm telling you the weird shit that was sent to me. I'm just telling you what kind of dream I had and why I was freaked out, right? So after that, I woke up literally, and as I was waking up, I was hearing this ringing in my right ear, this ringing sound in my right ear. And now, from what I understand, that's how the technology works when they're manipulating your mind and your thought. Check out my thought. As a matter of fact, let me show y'all. I don't know how long this video is, but I might end up doing it again. There's several videos where I talked about your ear ringing with this technology. There's this video, diagram of neuromonitoring effects on targeted individuals. And you can see the diagram of the lady standing there with the different captions and arrows. In that video, you can see that one of the symptoms of neuromonitoring is your ear ringing. So when they're using the technology on you, it makes your ear ring, right? So I remember my ear ringing when I woke up, and I told my mom about it. I told her about the dreams that I had and everything, the man doing the symbol with his hand and me waking up with my ear ringing. So now I realized that that was likely them sending that to me, doing the thought manipulation, right? And then a month later, they're antagonizing me, taking the current every minute, trying to just impede everything. All of my interviews, bullshit, just a bunch of weird stuff happening. And just also then now taking as far as sending death threats to my pool game. And I threw my hand up in that symbol. I can't explain why I did. I just know I was livid that night. And I heard that also too, they can control your emotions and make your mood, right? I remember I was livid that night and I threw my hand up in that symbol. Wasn't even doing the music yet. I wasn't even doing my music again yet when I did that symbol. As a matter of fact, I was doing the coding and I was staying away from the back end because I suck at math. Had that symbol been indicative of me doing something spiritual to get knowledge or whatever it is they're trying to paint, right? Or get a gift, don't you think my coding would have been A1? Don't you think I would have been creating big portfolios and computer apps and websites and this and that and back end, front end coding? Don't you think I would have been doing all of that if that's what that symbol was indicative of? They're not even making sense of what they're trying to paint with their narrative. I wasn't doing the music at the time. I was doing coding when I did that symbol with my hand. And I was very slowly teaching myself how to code. I did not know what I was doing. And if that symbol was indicative of me doing something spiritual for knowledge, don't you think I would have been a whiz at the coding? Don't you think I would have been doing it with my eyes closed and a whiz at the coding? It doesn't even make sense, the narrative they're trying to paint. They're just trying to paint anything at this point. It's crazy. So anyways, that's what that symbol happened. That symbol happened, I couldn't explain. That's the only thing I couldn't explain. Everything else I very clearly explained and refuted. I refuse to be set up, gaslit, or programmed. So this is why I fight and I advocate for myself, because I know what's being done and it's not right. It's not right. It's not right. So anyways, that's what happened. I did that symbol with my hand, and they just ran with that. After that, they amped up the nano in my body. I started fearing for my life. Things just took a very dark and gnarly, crazy turn, right? And so that's where I started making my videos more, and I really started advocating for myself, and I really started to refute the things that they were doing and learn about the program too. Oh boy, I really put on my thinking cap then, and I started learning about this program and the tactics they use to frame individuals, and not just frame them, literally destroy you if you're not freaking cognizant enough to realize what's going on. And so that's why I started making my videos more avidly and more focused, like I'm providing evidence and refuting what they're doing and the tactics and the framing and the this and the that. That's when I started doing that. And that was when I started to, like, I don't know, I guess you could say get more backlash. But even though I got more backlash, it did actually take off what they started doing to me, because I think they were trying to off me. God forbid. Let me be careful with my words. This is a computer simulation. Whatever you say, they start to do. So let me be careful with my words. But they were really, if they weren't trying to off me, they were darn sure like doing a good job of making me feel like that's what they were doing. They started to do some really, gnarly stuff to me. I started losing a lot of weight. I started feeling a burning sensation in my chest, like radiation was hitting me, energy weapon. I'm not going to say for sure that's what was happening. That's what it felt like. I even noticed a little black stuff under my eye, that happens to targets like Michael Barden. Michael Barden has it bad, where you start getting little black smudges under your eyes from the radiation poisoning. This is the level this thing went to from sending a text message. Understand why I advocate for myself and why I'm fighting for myself, because it's not right what's happened to me, right? So this is what they started doing to me, like literally physically doing stuff. It wasn't even just now you're doing things like, yeah, physical things like psychological things, but physical things like you're physically harming my body. I'm like, are you serious? Because I sent a text message and then in response to the abuse from the text message that was taken way out of proportion, you start freaking harming me? Like it's crazy. So anyways, I started to really advocate for myself at that point, and I think they realized what they were doing was WASI. And so they started to slow up with what they were doing to me physically, but still like a lot of psychological warfare, still a lot of psychological warfare, a lot, right? So I'm trying to think because there's a lot I want to talk about in this video. My brain, I'm not gonna trip. My brain just went blank. My brain just went blank. I don't know if they did that or if that's the ADD. Again, guys, this is like the second time it's happened in the videos. So I was talking about what happened back then with the coding. Okay, I was just refuting the symbol, basically, guys. I was just trying to refute that symbol thing that they tried to run with in the music thing because it doesn't even make sense. That's right. So I started just advocating for myself more in the videos. Oh my God. I got it back. Whoa. So I started advocating for myself more in the videos and just standing up for myself because it wasn't right what was happening to me. And I think I know the most I made it so that I was able to defend myself and refute the false allegations and the things that was happening to me. Literally, the protection of the Most High is what saved me. Literally, because I started praying heavily back then because it was crazy what they started doing to me, right? So anyways, after that, I remember that I did start to lose faith around that time when it felt like my life was now on the balance, basically in the balance, right? And I started feeling like I don't know, like they were trying to kill me. That's what it felt like. I'm not saying they killed me. I'm not saying they did try to kill me. I'm saying this is what it felt like. It felt like they were trying to kill me. That's what it felt like. What was happening to me with the weight loss, the black stuff underneath my eyes, the constant stimuli, because around that time when they started doing that, when my body started getting sick and stuff, and I also started feeling the nano crawling underneath, by my rib cage area and also in my brain at night. It's a weird feeling at night when you wake up with that Morgellons feeling, right? But around that time when it felt like they were trying to kill me, I'm not saying they were killing me. That's what it felt like. I was losing weight, skinny as could be, little black, smudges under my eyes, etc., feeling the nano moving around. I remember around that time I did start to lose faith. I was just like, where is the Most High? And even though I didn't even realize he was right there, because honestly, they could have offed me if they wanted to. But he came in me and helped me to refute what they were doing and helped me to prove my point and showed that what they were doing to me was wasi and not right. And I think that's why they kind of started to slow up with it a little bit. But still, I didn't have faith because I still didn't understand why all of this happened to me in the first place. I didn't understand why it went this far to the point where my life was in jeopardy. I didn't understand where the Most High was. That's just how I felt. I'm just being real. That's how I felt. I felt this kind of way, like, why aren't you protecting me? And he was protecting me in a way because, like I said, I could have been, God forbid, you know what? With the type of technology they have and what started happening, yeah, he did protect me. But back then I was just more so like, why are you letting this thing go so far? And all, this setup type feeling and all this stuff happening. And where are you? This is how I was feeling. And so back then I remember it's like, this is witchcraft. I'm gonna do what I have to do to get it off of me. That's how I felt. And so I remember that I downloaded a Return to Sender book. I talked about this in my prayer vids. I'm now kind of starting to reiterate what I said, but I just want you to understand the computer simulation and how they started to warp and create these false narratives with my own actions and my own words. And this is why I said be careful what you say, because it's a computer simulation and a smear campaign. So you can literally feed them ammo with your own words. If you're just expressing yourself and telling your story, they can take things and warp it and twist. You got to be careful. You can't just be vulnerable and think, oh, I'm going to be vulnerable and tell my story. No, they're going to run with anything you say and create false narratives. So anyways, I remember now after basically that time where I felt like my life was in jeopardy, and I didn't understand why this was being allowed to go so far over a text message and why I was getting this level of punishment. I was like, no way. I said, there's witchcraft on me. This is how I felt at the time. I was like, there was witchcraft on me. I had already talked about it in my story. Had already talked about the fact that I would be downloading likely a Return to Sender book. I didn't do it. Instead, around that time, I was doing a lot of research, looking into witchcraft. I started following this girl named Nikisha Wise. And she was talking about her situation, and it was similar to mine, except she had confirmation that her roommate had done something on her. I didn't have confirmation. I just had a feeling and I had evidence, not concrete evidence, but just some correlations that I saw. And I just kind of not ran with that. It's not like I totally said she did this, but I did start to tell my story and talk about the fact of why I thought something spiritual might be at play and why I thought this roommate might have had something to do with it. And me not having concrete evidence was wrong, and I can acknowledge that. But I was just trying to tell my story, and I didn't understand what was going on. Something spiritual felt like it was happening, and I felt like it might have tied back to her, and that's why I talked about it. I didn't say for sure. She in every video I talked about it, even my initial part 1 and part 2, how I became targeted videos that got deleted. Even in those videos, I said I have no proof that this girl did this to me. It's just speculation. I've said that in every video. It's not like in these videos I was saying that bitch did this or that girl did this to me, or saying her name or anything like that. I wasn't doing that. So I don't understand really why I got the backlash that I did for it. So anyways, I was just really trying to talk about why I felt like this was something spiritual going on. So anyways, around the time I lost faith, I talked about this in several videos, so I'm not going to go into too much detail in this video, but just know I downloaded Return to Sender book. I read it, and what a Return to Sender book is, I've talked about this in my prior videos, basically a spell book of white magic, where basically you feel like somebody did black magic on you, so you're doing a spell to return the black magic to them, which is wickedness, because it's all magic at the end of the day. Let me be careful with my words. I don't want to offend anyone, and there are some people who actually practice magic like it's their belief system, and I do understand there are different belief systems out there. So I'm very careful with my words, and I done pissed off so many people just reacting or trying to tell my story. So I'm trying to be very careful with my words. So I don't want to say wickedness like that, but from my belief system, I don't believe in practicing magic. That's all I'm going to say. So I understood that using white magic would, I wouldn't say be as bad as using black magic, but kind of, yeah, it would kind of be as bad as using black magic, because magic is magic. The only difference is black magic is done to harm somebody, and white magic is done to protect yourself because you feel like somebody did something spiritually to harm you. And that was my thought back then. I was like, oh my God, somebody put something on me. I need to get this off of me. That was what my thought was back then. I'm like, nobody's listening to me. All these people are turning against me. It's this weird, crazy shit where they're doing stuff to me and I'm reacting, and then I'm getting more vilified for it. I was like, no way. I said, this is witchcraft. I said, I got to do something to get this off of me. This is why I started thinking. And I started thinking that for whatever reason, the Most High ain't stepping in. Maybe because I didn't have faith. I didn't really know what it was, to be quite real with you. But it's like, I'm going to do what I have to do to get this thing off of me. That was how I felt. And so I remembered at that time, after I had started making those videos, and they kind of started to lay off of what was happening with the health scare, the stuff they were doing, whatever it was still happening, but they kind of laid off a little bit. I took that opportunity to try to figure out how to get this thing, what I felt was on me, off of me. And if anything, if something really was on me, I made it work. Because from what I understand from doing my research about witchcraft is that it only works when you believe it. And so me believing it so avidly, almost more than I believed in the Most High, and even taking actions towards getting it off of me, even though I didn't do white magic, I did read a Return to Sender book. I read the book. I read the whole thing. That might even be considered doing magic. I don't know. I've confessed it. I didn't do any of the rituals in the book, but I read every word in that book. I sat there and I read the whole book because I wanted to see what it would entail to get this thing off of me. But before I got that desperate, I was reaching out to this girl named Nikisha Wise. I was just talking about her and I went off on a tangent. And her story is similar to mine, except she had confirmation that her roommate did something on her. So basically similar to me, childhood friend, that had problems that she ended up living with. And then kind of coming to find out that this childhood friend had a disdain towards her and did some sort of witchcraft against her. And her story is so similar to mine, where all these bad things were happening that she couldn't explain, and all these people turning against her, and, her getting even to the point where the girl started losing weight and getting skinny, and all these weird things that started happening to her. It sounded very similar to my story, and she's actually around my age too, like 2 years older than me, right? So all these weird things started happening to her and all these blockages in her life, and a major sign of witchcraft is when you have blockages. So in other words, financial blockages, success blockages, relationship blockages. These are all major signs of witchcraft if you believe in it. Some people think it's like a bunch of fluff. Some people would hear me talking and saying what I'm saying and laugh and think it's like I'm crazy and not understand that there is a spiritual element to life. It's not just a physical thing. There are actual people out there that practice magic, and it's a real thing. My grandma used to tell us about it. My grandma that was from Trinidad tell us all kinds of stories. So this is why I had that understanding in my head too. I know that this is a real thing. These things exist. And I believe I'm a victim of it. I really do. And I think my lack of faith and believing in it is why it was able to work on me. This is what I believe. But anyways, I don't want to say that girl did it. I've been saying in all of my videos that I'm not sure. I don't have proof that she did it. I just suspect that she did it. So I don't want to bear false witness. But I do feel like somebody did something. Also, after her, my sister and I made friends with these two girls that were witches. A lot of weird stuff happened in my early 20s, and it could have derived from anywhere. But the only reason that I was airing it back to her, to the roommate, was because of the resemblance in some of the struggles that I had that kind of resembled or emulated some of the things that she went through in our friendship. That was why I kept more so focusing on her. That was why. And it could have just been a coincidence or like a major, case of synchronicities, unrelated coincidences. But it just felt too odd. It was just so odd. It was so odd how they, anyway, so whatever. So that's what happened around that time. I started to like say to myself, nah, something's on me and I need to get it off of me. And so I started looking into return to sender books, and I downloaded a return to sender book, read the whole thing, didn't do any of the rituals in it. I actually got freaked out when I read the beginning, and I saw, and I keep saying this in all my videos, when I saw that warning in the beginning of the book that said, if you don't know what you're doing, you might put something on yourself. I automatically decided I'm not dealing with this because I already always had a fear of dealing with that stuff. Even when I thought something was on me in the past before being a target, I would have never dealt with that stuff. But I was so desperate because of what was happening and not understanding that I was willing to read a return to sender. I was playing with the idea of actually doing a return to sender. I'm not going to lie. I'm very honest. I'm an honest, upfront person. That's why I downloaded the book, because I was considering doing a return to sender. That's how bad I thought something was on me. And then when I saw that warning in the beginning of the book that said, if you dabble in this stuff and you don't know what you're doing, you could put something on yourself, because the lady was talking about in her early 20s how she had done a spell, basically didn't know what she was doing, and she called a demon on herself. I read that whole story in the beginning of the book. I said, nope. I said, hell to the no. I said, no, right? I said, I'm not doing this. But I still sat there with my stupid ass out of curiosity, just wanting to see what some of these things would entail if I were to do it. And I read the whole thing. I read it from front to back, the whole book. Even the spells that she had in there. I didn't do any rituals. I did not do any rituals. None of the rituals she was saying you had to do. She was actually saying, some of them you had to go by a body of water, and you needed this and you needed that, and all these different activities that you had to do in this book. It was saying, it was so creepy, right? What I was seeing in that book. And I said, I am not dabbling in this shit. I denounce it in the name of the Most High. I said, I'm not doing it. But I sat there and I read it. I read the whole thing out of curiosity. I read it, and not just out of curiosity, I'm going to be real with you, still out of desperation and like, maybe I might still do this. I read it out of consideration of possibly doing something in that book because I really felt like something was on me. Read the whole thing. I've said this in all of my videos. I'm a very real, honest person. That's one thing about me, and that's why I keep getting myself in problems. I read the whole book. And after I read the book, I deleted it right away. And so I did that. I read the book. I started looking into astrology because there was a fellow target named Michelle Angelique. I don't mean to keep putting the lady's name out there, but she already has her videos up anyway, trying to help targets. And when I made my anti-nano bucket, I put her name out there. But basically, she was talking about in one of her videos how her boyfriend was able to pinpoint why she was targeted by reading her birth chart. So I had already read a return to sender book, and in my head, I was just kind of like feeling like I need to find some way to get this off of me. I contacted Nikisha Wise before even downloading the return to sender, by the way, before deciding that I would try to get it off myself. I was actually too scared to mess with that stuff because I knew I didn't know what I was doing. And so I was asking Nikisha Wise for her prophetess spiritualist. And basically her prophetess spiritualist was this lady that she went to. So she went to two people, kind of similar to me. The first person that she went to get it off of her, basically, I'm sorry guys, I'm hearing a lot of noise campaign. Not really sure what's going on, but I'm going to keep telling my story. That's all I can do with everything that's happening. That is all I can do, is tell my story. This is how I protect myself. But not only that, this is how I help other targets. Anyway, so I remembered that she was telling her story, and basically similar to me. Since her early 20s, she had had all these weird experiences, like astronomically strange experiences, and all these people turning against her, and blockages in her life. They even talk about the fact that a sign of witchcraft is relationship blockages. For me, that what happened with that dude with the cyber stalking, I told you I could not date a dude genuinely on island. I never had that issue before that. They literally, like with witchcraft, they can block up your romance life where you cannot get a genuine love connection because they've blocked that up for you. or you can't succeed. Every time you're doing good, something happens to drop the ball. Like they said, another major sign of witchcraft is when something really good is supposed to be happening and something bad happens to overshadow it, i.e., me graduating magna cum laude and then moving home and literally sending an innocent text and becoming a target. These are the type of things I've experienced since my early 20s. Or being in Walmart and innocently trying to help my sister cash a check and pay for her diapers, and calling the manager over, trying to figure out how to do it because I'm not doing anything wrong, and then having the asset protection man on my ass for 7 months. These are the type of weird things I've been dealing with since my early 20s, so you can understand why I felt like something spiritual was going on. So anyways, so I forgot what I was saying. So I just was in my mind, like, just really sold on the fact that I felt like something was on me. I felt like something was on me, something heavy. I felt like it was witchcraft and I felt like I needed to get it off. I felt like nobody was listening to me. I felt like my voice was going hoarse from making my videos. I felt like they were physically harming me and I hadn't done anything. And I felt like the most I just was not listening. I felt like he was kind of protecting me. There were several situations where I could have lost my life, even in Indiana. Y'all don't know how crazy that thing got. After a while with them stalking me at the inns and stuff and the weird stuff they were doing, I started driving on the road all night long, similar to what I was doing here on this island when I started getting in the back-to-back accidents, because I'm about to talk about that in a minute too. But I was doing that in Indiana, just driving up and down on the road all night long. I had a rental. And so I was driving up and down in the rental all night long rather than going to the inns. And then during the daytime, I would try to sleep because I was so creeped out, right? And so I remember one night, it was like 3 or 4 a.m. at night. I'm just driving up and down on the road. I was actually on the phone with my sisters this night, right? And so I drove on this backcountry road in Indiana like a dummy, acting like I know the place. I was driving around. Listen, I probably covered every square inch of Indiana with all the driving I was doing. I was driving to Indiana. I was driving to Chicago. I was driving all through Chicago. I drove to Ohio, driving, trying to freaking duck and dodge all of these damn gang stalkers that were stalking me. And it was every car on the road. So it's not like something that you could really dodge, right? So anyways, I remember this one night in Indiana, it was like 4 or 5, not even 5. It was more so like 3 or 4 at night. It was pitch black, right? And I remember driving on this little back road. I didn't mean to get there. I just kind of went off the highway by accident. And I happened to be on the phone with my sisters because I was trying to get help from them. I'm telling them, yo, what's happening? I'm getting stalked, pleading with them to help me and telling them I'm being stalked in the road. And they're telling me it's in your head, things like that, like I'm going crazy and snapping on me. Anyway, I'm not going to go into the details. I got to be careful, with certain things that I say in these videos. Or I'm supposed to say people in my close circle. I'm sorry. And when I say people in my close circle, it doesn't necessarily mean family, guys. It could just mean anyone that's in close relation to me. So just know that. When I say people in my close circle, it doesn't necessarily mean family. But in that moment, I wasn't supposed to mention family members. But I'm sorry. It kind of slipped my mind. I'm remembering that night. So anyway, I'm driving on the back road, talking to them, telling them, what's going on. They're just kind of, whatever, just, like it's in my head type of thing, right? And so I remember going on the back road and just passing by this cornfield and this tow truck, like the tow truck, the front of the tow truck, when they take, not the tow truck, I'm sorry. Like those big trucks, like the truck drivers, CDL truck drivers, when they take the back load part off of the truck and you just have the front part driving? That was in front of me. And it was this weird thing I had never seen before where two of those things were in front of me. And it's like one was trying to tow the other. That's what was happening. And then this big black truck was driving behind me with high beams on, right? And so I remember I drove up behind this vehicle, right? This tow truck, whatever it was, and they stopped abruptly, right? Because they were driving. He was towing. So the front, I keep saying tow truck. I'm saying the wrong thing. It was because he was towing, but it wasn't a tow truck. So it was the front of those CDL trucks. Those big, huge CDL trucks when they don't have the back load on and it's just the front of the truck? It was 2 of those trucks. And it was like the front part of one was kind of towing the front part of another, right? So they were driving in front of me slow, and this big black truck was driving behind me with these big bright lights on. And so I remember I'm driving behind them, and then they just stopped abruptly, right? And so the black truck comes to a stop behind me, and then I just see this guy, and he was Caucasian. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make it a race thing, but I just want y'all to understand the type of racially charged things that was happening to me in Indiana and what led to me saying the stupid shit I said in my car in Florida. This was one of those moments. I don't even know if it was a race thing or if it was just an angry thing. If he was just mad at me because he thought I was a bitch that mistreated homeless people that came from a prejudiced family. I really don't know. But I do want to mention that it was a Caucasian guy, right? So he busts out of his car and he starts walking with this, like, it looked like a crowbar in his hand, fast to my rental, walking up fast to me. It's 3 a.m. in the morning, understand that. And so my mind works quickly. I even almost got in an accident with my brother-in-law's truck where this happened. I think it's the most, I'm not even giving myself credit. I think the most I'd be hopping in me in moments and saving me. But as I saw this man speeding towards my car with this crowbar in his hand, I kicked the car into gear and I sped over the bypass. I want you to understand it was a back road, right? But it was like a highway back road. And there was like this middle median in the middle of the road. So literally I said, this rental, right? And I sped over the median and I did a U-turn and I sped to the other side of the road and almost mashed up the bottom of the rental. Thank the Most High I didn't. And I was on the phone with my sisters when this happened, by the way. And I sped and I hightailed it out of there. And I'm already somebody that drives really fast. So understand the way that I could have lost my life up there with the stuff that was happening. Understand the type of betrayal that happened, right? And then I come back here and it's just more shit, right? So this is what happened to me up there, right? These are the things that was happening. So I remember speeding past, getting over the median and speeding and getting away from whatever setup they were trying to do there, whatever they were trying to do to me, right? And telling my sister, the people in my close circle, what was happening. And they're still just being cold about it. Like they didn't hear what I just told them. You know, this is why I started to really just get really cold, you know? And then they wonder why I reacted in a certain way with certain situations and why I wasn't there for certain things. And yo, Ruby, shut up. You're being so loud. Like, just talk softer if you want to make your video. Nobody cares, but shut. Just shut your mouth. Anyway, so this is what was happening to me. These are the type of things that was happening to me when I was in the States dealing with the things I was dealing with, right? And so they try to paint it like I'm this cold person and not really understanding where the coldness is coming from because they know full well the type of sister I was before this situation happened to me, right? So these are the type of things that happen. And then I get gaslit and told that I'm a cold person when I'm acting indifferent or I'm acting uncaring or apathetic. These are the type of things that happened to me, right? That I didn't talk about. So anyways, so these are the type of things that was happening. So I forgot, I went off on a tangent. That threw me off, man. So I was just certain that something was on me. So when I was back home now, right, and I downloaded the Return to Center, did that, looking into the astrology now at this point, because Michelle Angelique's boyfriend, basically in her video, was saying that he saw in her birth chart why she was targeted and why she went through some of the things she did. And so to me, at that point, anything would have been appealing. I was just looking for help. And after I deleted the Return to Sender and decided I wasn't doing that, I knew that I still needed a solution to my problem and how to figure out what was going on. And so I basically started to learn astrology. Like I started learning the birth chart because this guy was charging too much money. Before I did that, I went off on a tangent. That's right. I went off on a tangent. I was going to Nikisha Wise because she's a Christian and she believes in the Bible and stuff. So I felt like she was someone that could help me. And she has a testimony because she's a witchcraft survivor. And so she was talking about the roommate and how she figured out that the girl did it was basically that she went to a prophetess, not the one that she went to the second one, not even a prophetess, excuse me. She went to a divinator, right? So she went to a psychic. And basically this lady practiced everything, apparently from what she said in her videos, black magic, white magic, everything. She went to that lady first, and that was how she figured out that the girl had done witchcraft, because literally the lady took her hand, did a reading, and was actually able to figure out the girl's name. She didn't tell the lady the girl's name. The lady knew the girl's name and said that this person did whatever to you. And so that's how she figured out her roommate did whatever. This is why I was adamantly looking up psychics. I was trying to get a psychic to do a reading on me because I wanted some validation to what I was suspecting, because I don't want to be sitting here on a video, saying that this girl might have done something and she didn't, and I have the wrong person, right? So, but it's just like all these coincidences and stuff and all these weird things that kept happening to me. I just really felt like it could have been her. And I've been very clear about the fact that it could have been, not for sure it was her, and it could just be like bad timing that like, damn, she just happened to have those bad situations happen around the time when that shit happened to me. And I'm pinpointing it on her, but then it was also my sister getting sick and the underwear thing. That was what really made me feel that it was something spiritual. Because had those things not happened, it wouldn't have been as much me saying she did something, right? So anyways, so that's what I wanted. I kind of wanted what she had, where I just wanted somebody to give me validation of, even if it wasn't her, tell me who did this. What is causing this? I just wanted some type of answer. I was desperate for answers. And so I remembered that I started looking into my birth chart, because when I saw Michael's, no, I'm going off on a tangent again. So before I got to Michelle Angelique's page and I started looking into astrology, before I downloaded the Return to Sender, I remember reaching out to Nikisha Wise because she had told her story and how she had a testimony and how she was saved. Because apparently that first lady she went to that was a psychic, not a woman of God, but a psychic, no disrespect to anybody that's psychic or, have a different belief system. I'm just saying, like, this lady literally was not, like somebody that believed in the Bible or stuff like that. She was into practicing magic. She went to that lady first and was able to find out who put it on her. And then she also went to that same lady and had the lady do some sort of, I don't know what on her, ritual or whatever it is she had the lady do. And she said things got worse in her life. So whatever was happening to her got way worse because she let this lady do something to her. And so basically what happened after that, after things got worse, she started looking for more help. And that was how she basically found the prophetess. And so basically after she found the prophetess believes in the Bible. The prophetess doesn't believe in doing divination. Apparently, and I do believe this to be the case. I've never met anybody like that myself, but I do believe there are people out there that are genuinely psychic. So in other words, not doing stuff like let me not say stuff to offend anyone, but not like reading spell books or doing stuff to be able to read what's going on with the person, just naturally have a gift of divination. There are people like that, prophetic people that believe in the Bible that can literally see into the future for whatever reason they were born that way. And so apparently this is the lady that Nikisha met, the prophetess, the second lady. And I don't mean to do that with my fingers, like to say she's lying. I'm just saying this is what the terminology was, the prophetess. I'm saying my fingers like y'all can see me. But it's just also because like it's weird because it's like, I'm being watched 24/7 and noise campaigns and stuff. It's just psychological, guys. Anyway, so the second lady was a woman of God. She believed in the Bible. She was a Christian and literally just had a prophetic gift where she could see into the future and stuff and clear witchcraft off of people with the Bible, not doing magic, not even white magic, none of that. And so basically this prophetess, this lady that was a Christian, is who helped her get the witchcraft off of her when she went to this lady. And so basically she told her story and she was saying, if y'all need help, y'all can go to this lady. So I remember getting excited, like, oh my God, okay, this is what I can do. And, I don't want to deal with magic yet. This is in my head. I was like, I was considering a return to sender. I had even talked about it in my initial, like I said, parts 1 and part 2 videos, but I didn't do it. I was actually still hesitant about dealing with that stuff. I never wanted to dabble with that stuff. I was scared, but I was desperate. So I remembered after her telling me about her prophetess, I was like, okay, this is the answer. I don't have to mess with that stuff. She's a woman of God. She can clean it off of me. I can go to her page right now and go through her videos and find the comments that I left for her way before I started making videos and stuff. There was even a comment where I told her I was thinking about downloading a Return to Sender book, and she was warning me not to do it. And she was even telling me that she had went to this lady, basically the same video that I'm talking about. She mentioned that incident in the comment. She was talking about the lady that she went to, the initial lady, that ended up making things worse for her, that did some sort of whatever on her and made things worse for her. And so I remember just kind of being nervous about that and thinking to myself, okay, well, I don't want to deal with the return to sender. I don't want any problems. I don't want anything to come on me worse than what's already on me. Let me deal with her prophetess. And I even showed the emails in my part 1, disproving new allegations against me video. I actually showed those emails where I was emailing this girl about her prophetess and also telling her my story and about the fact that I felt like something was on me. I showed those emails. So anyways, I called the prophetess. I took the number from her and I called the prophetess. And the prophetess was in Louisiana and was charging $122. And I'm broke. I'm a target. I don't have money like that. So that was when I got desperate enough, because I kind of had to rewind. I forgot that this happened. I got desperate enough to download the Return to Sender book. And I read that shit too. And I don't know why they're making noise campaign for that. I'm so confused because they saw me read it. So what does that mean? I didn't do a ritual in it. I've confessed that I read it. And I didn't do any of the rituals in it. They saw me. They're watching me like a hawk. I read the book, got scared, and I deleted it right away. From the time I saw in the beginning that you could put something on you by accident, I deleted that shit one time. But I should have never read it. That's the only fair. I don't want to say fair. I don't feel fair about it. But that's the only thing that I feel, kind of off about. Because even though I didn't do any of the rituals in it, I still read the book. I read it. I didn't do any spell. It's not like I sat there. She said you had to do, like, for instance, let me give an example. And I actually had a video where I showed some of these things that was in that book. And I hated to share it. I apologize for sharing it. But it was documentation and evidence. Of course, that video got deleted. But I was showing some of the things that was in that book to show that I'm being real about it, right? Some of the things she was talking about, the spell she had, you have to read it in a certain way, and you have to read it 3 times, and then you have to do this ritual by a body of water, and this and that, all this weird, creepy stuff. Breaking a mirror. There was something about a mirror breaking. When I said that, oh my God, they made mirror stimuli. They made everything that I talked about in my videos stimuli. But that was one of the things that she was saying, something about breaking a mirror, and you have to go by a body of water and break a mirror, and say the spell this amount of times, and this and that. I never did no shit like that. I read the book, right? I read what was in the book. I did do that, and I deleted that shit one time. I never did anything in that book because I was scared. I was like, nah, I want to get this off of me, but I ain't trying to put nothing more on me. That's one thing I'm not gonna do, right? So anyways, what's the next thing now? So after that, right, after doing the Return to Sender book and deciding I wasn't doing anything in that book, and deleting it, that was when I started still trying to find answers and figure out what I could do to get, and obviously not having faith, trying to find ways to get this thing, what I felt was on me, off of me. And so that was when I started looking into astrology. And that, again, too, it wasn't like I just off the top of my head said, okay, well, the witchcraft, white magic book didn't work for me. I'm too scared to do it. Let me look into astrology. That wasn't how that worked. What it was that I was looking at Michelle Angelique's videos, because she was the one that was teaching about the anti-nano bucket. And I had videos about this in the past, guys. I will make a future video about it. I can't tell y'all when that's going to happen, but if the Most High spares my life, I will make another video about it. But the anti-nano bucket, I did have videos about that. And one of those videos, I did have the link to Michelle Angelique's videos, because she gets vivid details. I want to almost venture to say more than Tony, not really more than Tony. Not more than Tony, but it's just like, I just like the fact that Tony kind of rushes through things, but he still makes so many videos. But she like intricately explains in detail how to put the bucket together, and, the fluid you need to put inside of it to pull the tech out. And, yeah, it's a thing, guys. I haven't really talked about it much in my newer videos, but there is an anti-nano bucket that can degauss the tech and pull it out of the body. So if the Most High spares my life, I will make a video about that in the future. But I don't want to go off on a tangent. That's not what this is about. I just want to tell you how I got into astrology. It wasn't just off rip me saying, okay, the witchcraft book thing, I'm too scared to do it, so I'm going to look into astrology. That wasn't how that worked. It was literally just that I was on her page looking at her videos about how to degauss the tech and the type of diet you need to clean the tech out the body, just doing my research like how I do. And I came across that video with her, and I think he was her boyfriend at the time. I'm not sure. Some guy that she was sitting next to. And he was basically talking about the fact that he read her birth chart and was able to tell her why she became targeted. And she was kind of like agreeing with him avidly and just like going along with what he was saying. And like it made sense, and everything made sense now. And me being in the desperate state that I was in, I was like, well, shit, I want things to make sense too. Maybe I can figure out why this is happening to me, because I don't have an answer. So I remember just kind of reaching out to him. He had left his email in her video. And I did a video about that too, guys. My part 3 disproving new allegations against me video. Everything I've done, I've talked about and admitted. So for me, it's gaslighting whenever they say I don't take accountability for things, or I'm not honest, or this and that. It's like, it's such, I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to say it in a disrespectful way, but it's so frustrating when you're being called a liar and you're actually not a liar. You know how annoying that is. It's so, you just want to rip everything up. It's so frustrating, especially when your honesty is actually what keeps getting you in trouble. It's really frustrating. Anyway, so I forgot what I was saying though. So basically I reached out to him. I emailed him, and if you want to see those emails, you can check out my part 3 disproving new allegations against me video. I emailed him, and I was asking him about the birth chart and if he would read it for me. And so basically what he was saying was that he was going to charge $100 and change to read my birth chart. And so from the time he started saying that, I was like, nah, I can learn how to do this myself. I'm teaching myself how to code. I'm used to teaching myself things anyways. I am broke. I don't have the money. So even if I did have the money to shell out, I don't have it. Even if I wanted to shell out that money, I didn't have it. So I just taught myself how to read the birth chart. I sat there and I figured it out. And I discovered, the information, how to read your birth chart. And from what I saw, again, I think just Satan trying to slip in. I'm thinking I'm having a Job moment right now. I really think right now, from my early 20s to now, has been a Job moment where I'm just constantly being tested, severely tested too, and just kind of like trying to see if I'm going to pass this test. And it's really been hard. So anyways, I think that was one of those moments, again, where I was being tested, because it made so much sense what I found in my birth chart. It was talking about basically this lesson I was supposed to learn. Apparently, I had a Saturn return right when my targeting started at age 28. Basically 28. It was like, yeah, it was 28 because I graduated in 2020 at 28 and then I came home. So at age 28, basically I had a Saturn return, and basically in this Saturn return, there was this lesson I was supposed to learn, this lifelong lesson that I needed to learn. You know, apparently it was this deep lesson that had kept repeating itself that I needed to learn. And if I didn't learn the lesson, I would be in darkness forever. And I think it was saying it was going to go on for a few years until age 30 or 31. Basically, I'm 31 right now, by the way, guys. But this is what the thing was saying. And it sounded so accurate to me at the time, with me wanting answers, and also realizing, you know, too, that I did play a part in some of the things happening to me. You know, I've taken accountability for the fact that I have bared false witness. I definitely have. I keep taking accountability for that, and that doesn't seem to matter. I've apologized for being false witness, and I still am being tortured. So I don't understand. Like, even before I relocated off island and put my foot in my mouth several times like a dummy and shared the stupid shit I shared, even before that, I was apologizing to the people in my close circle about bearing false witness, and it was still happening. What was happening was still happening. So it's confusing. I don't really understand. I'm baffled at this point about the lesson. I don't understand what the lesson is then. So anyways, that's what they were saying, that it was this lesson that I needed to learn, and if I didn't learn it, I'd be in darkness forever and blah blah blah. So I was just like, oh my god, it has to be bearing false witness, you know, because I keep bearing false witness and ending up in these predicaments. So that's the lesson I need to learn. I'm going to be in darkness forever. And I was like, okay, I got an answer, right? You know, and it just, to me, it didn't help really, because even though I came to that conclusion, I felt like there was nothing changing. I had already acknowledged that I bared false witness, and it felt like it was continuing. But anyways, that's what I did. I did the astrology, and then the last thing I did, I kind of went off. I'm really mad with how this video turned out, because what I'm doing is repeating the same things that I've done, that I've repeated in my disproving new allegations against me videos. That's what I'm doing, and I'm not meaning to do that. What this video was supposed to be about was me talking about the covert harassment, the gaslighting, the reactive abuse, and basically the programming. That was the main thing I wanted to talk about, and how the stimuli can be programmed into your brain when they're presenting it to you 24/7, to the point where all you have to do is see a word that they've sensitized you to, and a name will start to push into your head. It's really extremely effective psychological warfare. And I wanted to talk about an experience that I had yesterday and today. This is what I wanted to talk about. And I went off on a tangent talking about stuff I've already talked about in my prior videos. But I think because that's part of the stimuli that they keep pushing at me, and I don't understand why, when I've explained very clearly in every video how that doesn't make sense. I think that's why I keep going off on a tangent in these videos and repeating the story, because I feel like it's not being heard. But anyway, I didn't mean to start talking about, because the next thing I'm going to talk about now, the last thing that I did was listen to this frequency. And I've talked about that already. You know, I talked about that in my disproving new allegations against me part 1 video. So I'm not supposed to be sitting here telling these things again, telling these stories again. But kind of with the frequency thing, you know, that was also, I believe, thought manipulation. Because remember, they're constantly sending me stimuli. So I came to the realization that they likely sent that video to me. And I felt like that was a part of the experimentation. Because remember, the RFID chip, radio frequency identifier chip, it's ran off of frequencies. That's how they control it. They're using frequencies to send signals to your RFID chip. So I feel like it was almost experimentation when they sent that frequency video to me in my newsfeed. I kind of felt like they wanted me to click on that. So anyways, I'm not going to go into the details about that. I've talked about that already, guys. This is about programming. That's what this video was supposed to be about. And I ended up venting. And I think it's because of the constant stimuli and, you know, stuff that's being pushed at me. I ended up venting about something that I've already cleared and talked about in my prior videos. This video was supposed to be about programming and my experience outside of the house yesterday and today. And then also this kind of, I don't want to say gaslighting, but it kind of felt like gaslighting conversation that I had with someone in my close circle about my past as an alcoholic the other day. You know, all of that. Like, I just wanted to talk about. I'm going to make a part 2 to this video, guys, though, because I've been sitting in this anti-nano bucket for a while. And so what I'm going to do is this, I guess will be like, not a part 2. It's all going to be the same video, but I'm going to do another clip and add it to this video. So I'm going to stop here, guys, because I am going to come out of my anti-nano bucket, and I do have a turmeric mask on my face as well. And I've been talking for a while. I'm going to regroup, probably cut this video. I'm not sure. I'll see what I want to cut out, because I did kind of talk about things I've already talked about. I'm not sure, though. But then also, too, like I said, just going to add another clip to this video. So I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Peace out. Not even talk to you on the next one. I don't even know why. I think it's because I'm hearing noise campaign in the background. But I'll be back in the next clip, guys. All right. So peace out.